agenda posted for November 2nd online. I'm guessing that's for today's, maybe. Since it was posted on the 22nd. What do you think?
Cassie, you know anything about that?
Let me get to it really quick.
Well, this is for a public hearing. Okay, never mind. I'm a little off then. Oh, Planning Commission.
Okay,
Sorry.
alrighty.
That explains it. Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and start. On behalf of the City Council and the staff of Syracuse City, we welcome you to this electronic meeting. We're back to virtual because when we first looked at this a month ago, we looked like we were maybe plateauing, but with COVID, but we weren't exactly sure. So we planned this to be an electronic meeting. The next meeting on November 9th will be live. It'll be a hybrid meeting. So those of you who would like to can attend in person. COVID restrictions will be in place. We'd like you to 6-foot distance, and you can choose whether you wear a mask or whether you don't on the 9th. But we'd like to get back to being able to do hybrid meetings, but be in person. There is something about being together in a person meeting. But this meeting is being held electronically according with the House Bill 5002 of the Open and Public Meetings Act amendment signed into law on June 25th of 2020, pursuant to written determination by the mayor, finding that conducting the meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present due to infections and potentially dangerous nature of COVID-19. Public meetings will be held electronically for the next 30 days. The YouTube live stream of the meeting can be found on the following link, and you can go on the city's website and get that link. I found that particularly good over the last 2 or 3 months to be able to go back and look at videos through their video broadcast. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. I've asked Lisa if she'd lead us in prayer, and then Corinna should lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are thankful to be here this evening and grateful to gather through technology, be able to take care of the business of the day, and we're thankful for the things that allow us to do so. We're thankful for this city that we're blessed to be a part of, to belong to, and to serve and to plan for. We're thankful for the good people who live here. We're thankful for all those who sacrifice in our behalf for the freedoms that we enjoy. Please bless them and bless those who are working so hard in the background to create a safe place for us to raise our families and to enjoy our freedoms. We pray for the ability to think clearly and discern this evening, that we will have an understanding of the concepts and the plans ahead of us, and we pray that we will work together with the ability to reason and cooperate. And we are thankful again for the opportunity to do so. And we pray for all those who might be having a difficult time right now, that they will be blessed. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Corinne, do you have a flag, or Jordan? There we go. Okay.
There we are. Everyone
Okay.
please stand and make the appropriate salute. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of the United States of
America,
America,
and to the republic
and to the republic
which
which
stands one
under
nation,
under
under
God,
God, with
indivisible,
liberty and justice for
with
all.
liberty
and justice for all.
all. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate that. We would like to now give way to some public comment. Cassie, you shared with us that we have 3 emailed comments. Can you give us those now?
Yes. The first comment was from Noah House. He says, Syracuse City Council, my name is Noah House and I'm a resident of Monterey Estates. I'm offering up public comment tonight in regards to item I-1 on the agenda, the rezone of property along 300 South and 1550 West. A couple of neighbors and I conducted 2 surveys about this project. The data should have been emailed to each of you within the last few weeks. Please let me know if I can answer any questions. I wanted to initially express gratitude to the developer who has been gracious enough to work with members of our neighborhood, addressing some of the concerns we have. They have made efforts to form a coalition with 2 members of the neighborhood to mitigate traffic concerns with pickup, drop off at SAA, and draw up an offsite option for the hotel. I appreciate that they would have ongoing ownership in the property and are committed to keeping it maintained. With that being said, I do have some thoughts that I hope are discussed during tonight's session. First, the hotel, whether on-site or off-site, will not be adjacent to a high business commercial area. The hotel may do fine standalone, but wouldn't the city benefit even more having it surrounded by food and entertainment establishments? It's right on the northern border of the city with the closest eating and entertainment located in West Point and the new Smith Shopping Plaza. 2 things that aren't helpful for maximizing tax revenue that a hotel could help bring. Second, does the project fit within the purpose of MXD? Some key phrases from City Code 10.92.010 that I would appreciate there be a discussion on are, does it create a symbiotic relationship where residents can work, play, shop? Does it boost the city's daytime population, which supports local business and increases sales tax revenue? Is it the most urban atmosphere within the city? Also, is a hotel a permitted or conditional use? But if the project is to be approved, I ask the council to consider the following. 1, please allow the hotel to be developed off-site. This will allow the hotel to be on the main SR 193 frontage with the front of the hotel facing the road. I believe right now the on-site proposal has the hotel front facing the center of the development with its back to SR 193. It's also not on a main road. I believe the corner signage is also omitted. It's away from the school. There are serious concerns about child predation from the neighborhood. After reading the neighborhood survey, one of the planning commission members said he asked his law enforcement friend, who said child predators using hotels to commit criminal acts is absolutely a thing. It also gives the city and developer time to figure out what is going to go in at the corner of 2000 West and SR 193. Maybe it won't end up being a medical center, and then all parties can reassess. 2, please do all that is allowable to eliminate traffic during pickup drop-off hours at SAA. The developer has made efforts, but I think many still feel that this will not be enough. I've only driven along 1550 West once during that time, but that was all I needed to almost hit 2 sets of kids and parents darting out from behind cars. That was after sitting at 450 South for almost 10 minutes waiting for cars to turn into the school's parking lot. It's a mess. 3, require the most stringent water-wise landscaping allowable. This is a small ask, but our neighborhood already struggles with low water pressure. Plus, as you're well aware, we're in a drought. I understand this is a complex issue, and I appreciate everyone's time, consideration, and efforts going into this decision. Thank you, Noah House. Okay, number 2 is from Summerlin Gee. Good evening, council. I write again to take up my position against the Monterey West development as it's currently proposed. I would like to reiterate that I do not oppose the development of that land. I simply object to the plan in its current form. It is no secret that a hospital is being considered west of the development in question. If you'll recall, I implored in your last work session that you consider other developments that surround hospitals and the types of businesses that thrive there. In particular, I made mention of Medical Drive in Bountiful surrounding Mountain Stars Lakeview Hospital. If you're unfamiliar with this area, I would ask that you please consider a visit. Additionally, I would like to point to the medical offices that surround Davis Hospital, as well as the plans that have been laid for Intermountain Layton Hospital. Are you aware of the Tanner Clinic currently being constructed just across Layton Parkway from Intermountain? I have patronized these area hospitals as well as their adjacent medical clinics. I would gladly patronize a similar area here in Syracuse. In contrast, I have never patronized a Davis County hotel. In my last letter, I suggested that if I were to look for a hotel nearby, I would not look to Syracuse, but to Layton. If a hotel is still desired, please consider requiring other businesses that may be a complement. Consider movie theaters, restaurants, shopping. These are the amenities that draw in visitors and residents alike. It does not seem a smart business decision to isolate a hotel from other economic opportunities. The fact of the matter is there are better places to stay and play than Syracuse. In the short time I have been tuning into your meetings, I have heard multiple council members express opposition to piecemeal development in our town. If I'm not mistaken, this swath is one of the largest contiguous areas of undeveloped property within Syracuse. Please consider the weight of your responsibility to master plan. Please do not make the mistake of placing businesses where they don't belong. I think if improved, the development, including a hotel and additional retail, could be a great asset. It could fit well within the mixed-use zoning provisions that suggest an area where residents can work, play, shop, and live. The development in its current form is not the best we can do for one of the largest areas of opportunity remaining in our town. Respectfully, Simmerlingi. And then the final one is from Michelle Larson. To whom it may concern, I live on 1550 West in Syracuse in the Monterey Estates neighborhood. I see how the traffic from the nearby schools, Syracuse Arts Academy and Syracuse High, and people cutting to and from 193 already makes 1550 West a safety hazard. Cars race down the street, and with additional cars parked on 1550 West for drop-offs and pickups, it lessens visibility and creates a very unsafe situation for pedestrians and young children walking to and from school. We have some concerns about the proposed development. First, a hotel situated this close to schools is a safety hazard. There is potential for predators to live there in close proximity to the schools. If you do zone for a hotel, it should be further away and located closer to actual restaurants. It will be vacant if you put it in our neighborhood where there is no access to shopping or dining. Also, a hotel is not classified as mixed use. Calling it mixed use is not accurate, so it shouldn't be included in a mixed use zoning plan. Parking is a great concern. Anytime you add more residents to this area without adding other ways to get to the proposed parking, you are making our problems worse. If additional apartments, condos, small homes are adding each individual unit, oh wait, yeah, that's how it's said. Sorry. Small homes are added. Each individual unit should have 2 parking spaces allotted to keep parked cars off the street. In order for the potential units, businesses, etc., to be successful, they need another access road besides 1550 West. My husband and I are against the zoning change. We feel that development should not begin until adequate safety measures are put into place. When the large adjoining field near the high school is ready to be developed, it will bring connecting roads to 2000 West and will help divert additional traffic off 1550 West. Please do not add traffic on this already busy street. This is not a time-sensitive issue, and you have time to get the property in question modified to make a safe space for the existing school and current residents. Approving this measure and pushing it forward will leave residents with a mess and create many potential safety hazards. Please do not approve this development at this time. Thank you for your time, Michelle Larson. That's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Cassie. And now those of you who are actually joining us by Zoom, if you would like to comment, we'll give you 3 minutes. If you'd state your name and place of residence, we'd like to hear from you too. And if you'll just hold your hand up or under the reactions, there's a hand. Okay, Nancy, I see your hand go up.
Okay, you've seen me before. My name is Nancy Bakke, and I have spoke to the City Council before a couple weeks ago regarding the towns at City Center. And I believe you all have a letter from Carrie Jorgensen and myself. And so I'm just going to briefly recap. There's 3 reasons why new zoning conditions need to be placed on the only property in the Walmart shopping center that is zone mixed use. First, this is a very poor location for residential townhouses, particularly 4-bedroom townhouses that will attract bigger families. There is almost nowhere for the children to ride bikes and play, so they will be riding and playing in the drive aisles in the parking lots of the retail center, which is dangerous. School buses, public transportation, garbage cans, mailboxes are all a problem. The center's courtyard of the development is about the size of a single residential backyard and can't fill the needs of 20 big 4-bedroom units. Also, adding townhouse development will change the look and feel of the retail center. The best future tenants will opt for more clearly retail settings. My property is particularly at risk because it will be partly separated from the rest of the center by this townhouse project. And last, the project has far too little parking. In every city council meeting, multiple members of the council expressed concern about the parking. Unfortunately, you were given misleading information. First, you were told the developer was working with the neighbors on parking. That's simply not true. Mr. Hughes approached each of us and asked if the townhouse development could park on our properties. We both told them directly no. It was misleading when he told you on July 13th that he was working with me on parking because he knew by then that it was not an option. You were told that the ECR will allow residential tenants to park anywhere in the center, but you are not given a true picture of what the ECR actually says. You probably didn't know at the time that the ECR says only commercial uses are allowed, and that every lot owner must develop 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of building area on their own lot. And that the drive aisles could not be moved without every owner in the development agreeing. An ECR is a two-way agreement, and you can't claim the right to park on the other lots if you don't provide any parking on your lot. The other owners would be under no obligation whatsoever to provide any parking to this residential development. And I hope that it has become clear that this project will not have a reasonable commercial component, and that it will probably provide no surface parking whatsoever. I hope you will please take the time to get a zoning amendment underway so that if the current project is not approved, some needed changes can be made. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. Carrie, do you want to respond?
Yeah, yes, thank you. I apologize. I can't see the raise your hand feature. So
Just raise your hand. I saw it.
yeah, thank you very much. I apologize that we showed up at the wrong week 2 weeks ago. So now you have to hear it twice from us. But I really appreciate the time. And I want you to know that I'm very impressed always with the interactions I've had with Syracuse City up till now. And I've been very happy that I invested in Syracuse because I believe it has a really bright future. And this one strip of shops here is a big part of my retirement. So I can say that I'm heavily invested in Syracuse. As you know, we're in the middle of a mess right now because lot 6 of this commercial center has been rezoned for a use that's not permitted by the ECR. We all know and agree that the city's not responsible for enforcing the ECR, but I've pointed out before, ignoring the ECR is different than enforcing it. Over the past couple of weeks since we spoke last, I've paid for a little time with 4 different attorneys, 2 of them being former property rights ombudsmen for the state of Utah, and they're unanimous in their opinion that there is nothing improper about a city considering the ECRs in making zoning decisions. In fact, it's probably a good policy is going to require it. My personal attorney recently represented a developer who was required by Draper City to negotiate amendments to an ECR in a commercial center before the city would allow the project to go ahead. Now, the reason they did that was not that they were trying to enforce the ECRs. It was not because they were trying to protect the other property owners. It was just to do their function, which was to make sure that the developer had the access and parking and other rights that are necessary for the project to meet their development code. If you consider this town's proposal, it shows sidewalks being constructed on my property to provide some limited pedestrian access, but the developer doesn't have any right to install sidewalks on my property. What if the neighbors decide to put up no parking signs and tow any vehicles that are guests or residents of the town, and they're left with nothing but with 0 or possibly 3 or 4 on-site parking stalls? What if 1 or more of the neighbors block the drive aisle so that they don't have access from 2 directions? They don't have the fire access that's required anymore. Well, the developer could certainly try to sue the other lot owners saying, look, we had an agreement, but that agreement says if the lot owners essentially all agree that they're all going to use only commercial uses, they're all going to install 5 spaces per 1,000, and that then they all share their parking together and that they won't block the drive aisles and everyone can have access to all the drive aisles. But how are they going to win such a lawsuit if they violated the ECR in all of its most basic components? What if the units all sell before the project's even done, which seems pretty likely in today's market. And then you got 20 different property owners before one of these problems pop up. I mean, is it the city that's got to take over and sue to provide the access and the sidewalks and all of the other things? And can the city even win such a suit? And or would they get embroiled in a messy condemnation action of some sort to make sure that they enforce all of those rights? And I think that that is why, like Draper, decided they had to require the developer to show they had enforceable rights. If they're violating the ECR, they don't have the enforceable rights. It's putting the city in a dangerous position. Now, from everything I can see, the city council had no idea that residential was not permitted in this center when the zoning was passed. And I don't think any of you knew that there was a parking requirement that was being violated. In fact, like Nancy said, you were given some kind of misleading information about the ECR. So I know that you were doing what seemed best at the time, but now we're in this predicament and Nancy and I have to decide how to protect our property rights. We've been told by the city staff that the only thing we can do is sue the developer. Well, Greg Hughes phoned me up afterward, said we ought to be friends since we're going to be neighbors, and then told me that because they got such a great deal on the land, they could afford to spend $300,000 to $400,000 on a lawsuit. They paid roughly $250,000 for this site. And you know, a single family lot, which is that much, a fourplex lot is more than $250,000. So if they can get 20 units, they can afford a big lawsuit. And they're hoping that we can't, that we won't see that through. But we shouldn't be in this situation. And so we're asking the city council to take the step tonight of instructing the Community and Economic Development Department to open the process of establishing some zoning conditions for this property. We hope that we've given you some information that you didn't have before, but it's clear that even with the information you did have, this project never went in the direction you intended. From the amendments you made to the motion, it's clear that you hope there'd be more commercial and you hope that the parking situation would be improved. And so we're asking that for this particular location, that we would like you to limit the mix of uses to non-residential uses so that you reduce some of these conflicts with the neighboring property owners. But if you feel that for some reason it's important that you have residential uses in the Walmart Center, we ask that you please at least require a substantial commercial component to the development, maybe 50%. And we also ask that you require a minimum of 2.5 parking spaces per residential unit on site. You were concerned initially about the parking situation when there were 10 on-site parking spaces. And now there are 0. This would only restore those 10 spaces and would still leave us with a parking problem. We recognize that any zone process you open up now will not have any impact on the developer's current appeal of the Planning Commission's decision. And so there might be a temptation to just wait and see how this process shakes out. But we plead with you not to do that. If you do, the developer can, if his plan doesn't pass, he simply replaces 1 unit with 3 parking spaces, and you will have lost any ability to implement the improvements to this thing that you think might be appropriate. The Planning Commission says their hands are tied and they will approve it. But if you put this process in motion now, it'll serve as a backstop and will allow you to make any changes you think are appropriate. And I know that you're well enough able to deal with the appeal objectively and have this process in motion at the same time. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Anybody else present in the Zoom meeting that would like to comment on anything not already on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public comment. Cresta, let's talk about hockey.
All right. Mayor, Nick Van Komen had reached out to us about a hockey program, and he is here to give a presentation to the council about the importance of hockey and what he thinks it could do to the community. So, Nick, are you ready?
I am ready. So, hey, I'm actually at an ice rink right now watching my daughter play. So, sorry, I just chiming in. So, I'll keep it nice, short, and sweet. I am in Salt Lake because we have to drive pretty much all around the entire state with just to play hockey. So, if we could get something closer, that would definitely help out. Can you see this presentation I got?
We can see it.
Okay, so I'll quickly go through this. So this is what I've been trying to push and talking with Cresta. We had a meeting. So about me, I come from a family who didn't play hockey, but now my kids all play hockey, and I run a hockey podcast actually here in Utah. And there's actually a lot of growth for hockey in Utah, and it's growing like wildfire. But we're running out of ice space for kids. Hence why I have to drive to Salt Lake and other rinks that are not very close, so to get ice time. So why my drive is I love hockey and I have a passion for hockey in the community. My goal here is to bring the game of hockey to as many people as possible and provide hockey for the youth. And this picture right here is actually a picture from a summer learn to skate program. And these are all brand new kids that have just decided to play hockey this summer. So as you can see, there's tons of them. And we already had full teams in this bountiful organization this is taken it. And so all these kids had to be funneled in and basically just shoved on overcrowded teams just to be able to play hockey. So we have limitations on, there's nowhere for kids to play in our community. Like in Syracuse, you have to drive to Ogden or Bountiful to even step on some ice. So, and there's nowhere in Syracuse for kids to play hockey other than their own driveways. So there's a lot of private properties that, get told you can't play here, whether that's a church parking lot or school parking lot or tennis courts. And so kids are forced to not even be able to play street hockey these days because there's just nowhere for them to play. And if they're playing in the streets, there's no streets that are a good street to play hockey on. And kids are having to dodge cars and stuff. And examples for hockey in schools is a very poor example of hockey. The sticks they use are the equivalent to playing basketball with like a flat or mini basketball. So they don't really get a good representation of the sport. So, and then ice availability is just so hard. Like you can call up any rink in the state and ask if you want to rent ice, pay them money, and most of the time you'll get told no. 9 times out of 10, you'll get told no, unless you want to rent ice at about midnight on a Wednesday. That's about the only time you can rent ice anywhere in the state. So it brings me to ice availability. So where I live in Syracuse and where everyone else lives in Syracuse, you probably have to drive 30 minutes plus to find any ice time. And that's any ice time at all. You can't find it anywhere closer than 30 minutes. If you play basketball, football, tennis, anything, you can basically drive 5-10 minutes away from Syracuse to play. There's like I said, renting ice is almost impossible, even at the expensive rates. Rates range from about 180 an hour to 220. And even at that price, you can't rent ice if you wanted to. So like I said, the limitation on ice has forced big rosters and youth teams, limiting time for, puck touches and stuff. You learn the game of hockey by touching the puck and stuff and playing. So if there's less ice to skate on and you're forced to pack 50 kids on an ice rink, they're really not getting quality practices. Also, limited ice in Davis County and Ogden, those are the primary rinks that Davis County schools would funnel into. And so schools have now had to combine high school teams. And as it stands right now, there's only 3 high school teams that are actual school teams. So that would be Bountiful, Viewmont, and Farmington. every other high school, and whether that's a private high school or a military high school, is combined on one team. So one team houses Layton, Northridge, Clearfield, Davis, Woods Cross. Every one of those high schools plays on the exact same high school team because there's just not enough ice to go around. So basically these three that are closest to Bountiful have early morning practices and kind of get that seniority, so they're able to have their high school programs. Teams and organizations, like I said, DCYHA is the primary organization in Davis County. So with their practices and games, kids are only limited to one practice a week. Most organizations have, usually two practices, and that's due to, like, Ogden has 2 sheets of ice. Salt Lake has, the rink I'm at has 2 sheets of ice, but they also have 2 other facilities. The Oval out in Kearns has multiple ice sheets. Provo has multiple ice sheets. So, Davis County only having the South Davis Rec Center with one ice sheet really limits that for the Davis County kids. Golden Eagles, which is the Davis County's travel organization. So we have rec programs, and if you play soccer, I think it's called comp, or baseball, it's called comp. So we call them travel or tier programs. So the Golden Eagles is Davis County's, and they're forced to practice. They have one ice practice at Davis County a week. All the other ones are at Salt Lake or they're at Ogden because we just can't get any ice for the team in Davis County. So Beaumont, even all these teams have JV teams that are doing fairly well, and big teams. So you have multiple teams. Farmington's actually been the runner-up to the state championship the last 2 seasons. So we have good hockey players in the county. Like I said, DCI, which is Davis County Independent, pulls from 15 different high schools. So basically we need more ice in Davis County to help grow school hockey or rec hockey at any level. So kind of got into the variables that we have here. These different types of rinks, and there's costs that are going to come with anything. Land, what kind of surface, whether you do ice, roller, boards, materials. There's a lot of different variables on how much an ice rink is going to cost the city. You could build an outdoor rink that you could use primarily in the summer months, and the average cost is around $30,000 with boards and whatever flooring you have. That's not including land, but you could do an outdoor ice rink. This is actually a Salmon, Idaho. This is a rink we actually played on last winter, and they do an outdoor rink every winter, and it actually attracts a lot of outside teams. We traveled from Davis County all the way to Salmon, Idaho just to play in this hockey tournament. You can do an outdoor indoor kind of thing. This is actually Cedar City has an outdoor rink, and the picture on the right top was what they were gonna do. It was next to the high school, and they were gonna build an awning over it. That way if it snowed or rained, it wouldn't affect the ice. They ended up moving it to the location on the left, and it doesn't have a roof, but that's where they put it every year. This is a college game that they actually played down there in Cedar City on that ice sheet. This is another indoor outdoor mixed rink, and so it's basically an outdoor rink with an enclosed roof to kind of snow and everything pouring onto that. So, and those vary in cost, but your typical 1 sheet ice rink, and this is your run-of-the-mill kind of ice rink right here. This is the layout. They cost usually under $5 million to build. There is other costs that come with running it, electricity and stuff, but so to say, as a public amenity, $5 million compared to a park that costs $20 million for grass. I see it as a doable, and it adds a lot of value to the city. This is actually the Park City Ice Rink. Its original cost was $5 million. I mean, yes, it was built a while ago, but this is actually Park City's ice rink. And so it's kind of built on that same layout. It's very minimal and, keeping those costs down for the city. This is another indoor ice rink. This is more of like a juniors style where there's stands all the way around it. So just another option and keeping that cost down. So these are a couple little facts. There's a lot of movies that have actually been filmed at ice rinks in Utah. I mean, there's a lot of movies filmed in Utah. Just there is. There's a lot of pro players actually from our state. There's Steve Kornwalchuk, Daniel Brickley that plays professional still. Dylan Olson actually just retired today from professional hockey. Richard Bachman and Trevor Lewis that actually won a Stanley Cup, and only player from Utah to win a Stanley Cup twice actually. And these are also other DJ Gillito, Evan Stofflet, Jared Pike, Mason Manick, and Garrett Metcalf are from Utah, and they both currently play on the Utah Grizzlies. Nathan Chen, sorry. He Olympic figure skater. You'll probably see him at the next Olympics going for gold. He's from Utah. So there's a lot of famous, people from Utah that, grew up on the ice. And I think if we just add more ice, I mean, it's only going to up that number of people from Utah. And also the big thing here is the Olympics have a potential to return to Utah in 2030 or 2034. Salt Lake is actually the runner and the head runner for those Olympics. So, and that'll only boost, ice interest in ice sports. Because right now you could play pretty much anything professional. It's an Olympic sport, or learn it. And hockey, we don't have, a professional team, but we have the Grizzlies, so they are professional. But these are just facts I want to throw out there because a lot of people just don't know much about hockey from Utah, but it's actually a pretty prominent thing, and we do have pros coming out of this state. So I also wanted to, let's see. Sorry, I'm not the greatest at this screen sharing stuff, but I actually put out a poll online, and I kind of shared it just on my Facebook and around the internet with where I have hockey or just people I know. So I basically ran a survey, and out of 123 people that filled out the survey, and these weren't just hockey fans, these were just anybody I asked to fill out the survey. I asked lots of people, and most people, as you can see, over 90% said they would very likely use an ice rink in Syracuse. This question was, how likely are you to visit an ice rink in Syracuse? As you can see, 102 were very likely to use it, compared to 6 that said not likely. How likely were you to, I don't know, this is not loading. Okay. Visit, okay. How likely are you to visit an ice rink in Utah? In Syracuse. Okay. How often would you visit it? Because that's a big deal, is how often would you visit? And 23 said daily, 62 said weekly, and 26 and 12 yearly, monthly. So as you can see, there's a high volume of people that would visit these rinks weekly. Also showing, I asked people what city they lived in, because that was a big deal to kind of see where you would pull people from. Because not only Syracuse, only 17 were residents of Syracuse that said they would use this ice rink. And I put in West Point, Clinton, and I put in a bunch of, or Ogden that has an ice rink, but 38 people out of this 123 were from other cities. So, that ranges from Salt Lake, who knows where these other cities are. But that's just saying that it's going to pull a lot of interest from outside cities to the city of Syracuse. where we could benefit from bringing those dollars from outside cities in.
Nick,
Um,
can
yep.
I stop you for just a minute?
Yep.
My job is to make sure that we get through all of the agenda. We've
Yeah.
allotted 10 minutes for this. We've already been 15 and we haven't had a chance to discuss it as a
Okay,
council.
that was basically my end of
Okay.
it anyways, so.
Lisa, do you want to lead us out in a discussion of an ice rink in Syracuse?
Yes, just like so many things, it sounds like a wonderful idea, and I appreciate all of the research you've put into this, Nick. And I love a hockey game. That's really awesome. It's amazing, the sportsmanship and how hard you work for that. So, I think that we are. If you can find a place for it and if you can find funding, that's one thing. But one of the things that we're charged with is having the greatest amount of taxpayers, because everybody's involved in paying for this. So we would need the vast majority of the city to benefit from this. And so I don't know how comfortable we would be with funding something that is for a smaller portion of people, even though I understand it would bring people from other cities and surrounding areas, and that would be wonderful. I think this is probably the first stop on your list of things to do to see what can come to pass. But I think it would be interesting to see if there's a space that you could share parking lot and facilities with. But I just see this as a really exorbitant cost for not as many people being served from the city who would be asked to fund most of it. So I think that if this is your beginnings portion of it, then the best thing to do would be to at this point look into if there's a shared land space that could be used with several facilities for this kind of thing. But I would love to see it, and I understand how hard it is when you have so many kids who want to be involved in it and families who this matters to them, and you have to go long distances to reach it. So I know that that's frustrating for you.
Jordan?
Yeah, so this has been on our Parks Committee agenda for about 3 months, and we haven't been able to hear it yet. Each of those times the applicant wasn't able to show up. So this is the first I've really been able to review this plan in detail. I would have liked to have had this go to the Parks Committee first before coming to the whole council. But as it is, I agree with Lisa in this, that we really need to look and see where we could put this if it was something that had a lot of support, and how we could fund that. Because yeah, I agree that this is probably not something we would sacrifice a park for. But I think there is a compelling need for this. I just don't know the wheres and the hows of making it a reality at this time.
Thanks, Jordan. Seth?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Nick, for the presentation. Pretty informative. I as well love hockey. I think what they've said is probably true for most of us, that it would be a pretty big public investment. And realistically, we would need to see how that fits into our parks master plan. We do have a plan that kind of prioritizes which projects are online, and I'm sure, Nick, you've probably heard a lot of feedback. You kind of alluded to the regional park discussion a little bit, and cost and all that. And there's quite a bit of sentiment publicly about finishing projects that are already in process, and parks that are maybe underserved as far as investment that we've made. And so a lot of priorities exist right now. And so how that would fit in there, it just, to me, seems a little far out. But, it seems to me like this would be a better private venture. But, that's a challenge as well. So anyway, good luck with that. But I'd love to see it come back as an effort to the city in a private venture, if that was something that made sense for you, or you could find a partner for that.
David?
Well, we've had lots of citizens over time come to the city with great ideas of how to spend money that we just don't have. And that's kind of where this sits for me. We don't have this money in our budget somewhere. And I would say that I would treat this the same as everything else. And that is, if the money comes forward from another source, we can be a great partner with helping you find a location. but I don't see the city funding this. We haven't done it for others, and as a matter of consistency, I don't see us doing it here. If we did, that would be inconsistent with what we've told others who've come forward with wonderful ideas that they didn't have the funds for.
Thank you, Dave. Corinne?
And it sounds like a broken record. I do love hockey. I even went to, back in the day, Eagles games, back when they were at the Salt Palace. So, but at the same time, our poor park budget is stretched as it is, and I don't know where we could fit this. And maybe if there is a plan, we could maybe do a long-term plan, but that would be something you need to know up front. It'd be long-term. It'd be something down the road. So I don't think that there's any harm in any looking forward to possibly getting this on a list, but just, you know, realistically, it's down the road a little ways and probably longer than you'd like, but that's pretty much everything with government. So with limited resources, that's sometimes how it goes. But I'd love to have it here if it just might take a while.
Jordan alluded to something that hasn't been to the Parks Advisory Committee. May I have your permission to send it to them and maybe look for spaces that might work?
I think the issue, I mean, I'm not against that. And if you want to spend your time doing that, Jordan, that's fine. But the money is the issue. I mean, we don't have this in the city budget. So even if we have a great place for it, I think first, if Nick can come forward with a sponsor or an investor and there's a money to build this, I'm all for trying to find a space for it. But I don't see us finding the money for it with so many other things already on the list and committed to and publicly announced. So in that sense, I would think that you'd be spinning your wheels trying to figure out where to fit it in if there's no funding to make it a reality.
Well, and to add to that, this has actually been on the Parks Committee agenda for 3 months straight, and we just weren't able to meet up. So we had already said that this is something they could look at almost several months ago.
Sure.
And it's just, again, I know that we're all busy, but we've kind of been waiting for this presentation for 3 months, and then it just bypassed the committee and came straight to the council. So I would have liked to have seen it go the other way. But yeah, I kind of agree that right now, at least in my mind, we've got a 5-year plan, and I don't see this offsetting anything. The only thing that's really been able to supplant anything on that plan was something that came to us with a private donor that said, we will build a facility if you'll provide the land and power. And so if they were able to come back with something like that, where all we had to do was see if we could find some land and maybe some water hookups, and they would kind of take on the rest, I think that would revise my statement earlier. But as to the city paying for this outright, I don't see that happening, like Corinne said, in the foreseeable future, but not so that this is not a never, this is a not right now.
Good. Nick, do you understand what they're asking you to do?
Yeah. I totally get it.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know, what they're asking you to do is to come with a sponsor that would help you build that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. This one I'm going to take, and I'm going to make it really brief because it will involve an opening of the budget in the November meeting. I was at a COG meeting where Safe Harbor asked for monies because of the revocation of VOCA funds, which has affected not only Safe Harbor but our own victims department, our victims unit here in the city. So there are grants that have been denied them this year, and so they are needing money. At the last, I called Safe Harbor to see what they were asking from cities for money. They said at least $5,000. Now, we're not sure yet whether we can use ARPA money for that. We do know that domestic abuse increased during the COVID season. So we're still investigating that, but what I'd like you to do is just over the next couple of weeks, because this will be an action item in November. If you think 5,000 is enough, or you do something else, and we'll have a discussion in November over that. So are we okay just to leave this for now and let you think about it for 2 weeks?
Yes.
You good?
Thank
Okay.
you for throwing out a number, because it didn't really say how
Mayor
much.
Paul.
So thank you.
Paul is raising his hand.
Paul?
Mayor, Steve and I talked about this today, and Steve looked at some frequently asked questions on the Treasury website, and it looks like this is ARPA fund eligible. So it's not even that we need to worry about our general fund being depleted by this.
Okay,
Good.
Great.
but let's think about how much, and we'll have that discussion in 2 weeks. Okay, thanks, Paul.
Do we need to table anything, or are we okay to just move
Well,
that?
it's not up for vote.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, this isn't a
Right.
vote, so.
I'm just saying table the discussion, just asking. Or
For this? We really can't make motions in a work session.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
I do have some questions about this. And first of all, let me just say that I'm 100% in favor of this organization and supporting them. My question is there any concern, and maybe this is a question that has to be researched between now and 2 weeks from now, which is why I'm asking it. Is there any concern that if we were to give this money, we would not have the money to deal with our own victims advocate grant? Is that going to be in conflict? If it's ARPA money, it sounds like it won't be, but that was one of my concerns. If I had to pick between the two, I want to know it. I just want to know that that's what we're being asked.
Okay, can we research that a little more, Steve and Paul, and have that discussion in 2 weeks?
Sure. Yeah, we'll look into that. Make sure we have an
Okay.
answer for you.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about, Preston, we talk about a BMX track.
Yep, you guys had got this last business meeting, but we were asked to get some more research and more information and to set up a BMX tour at Rad Canyon, which we did last Friday. I've put in the memo what properties we're looking at. Obviously, the regional park, the fields, east of City Hall, which I don't think any of you guys were for that. And then we also talked about last time the property east of the equestrian park and park maintenance facility. And then I gave you the ranking of the parks advisory. Their ranking was regional park, the fields, and then east of City Hall. But they actually didn't have the opportunity to listen or even know about the property east of the equestrian park. So they didn't get to weigh in on that one. Zach is here for any questions that you guys might have for BMX, but I think that we've been doing this since February, so I think you guys kind of know what we're asking. They're asking to find a location, and then also I have included and attached the MOU, the memorandum of understanding, the draft, that's been attached to, if that's the direction that we want to go. So we kind of need to know going forward if we're going to do this and if we're going to provide a location for them to do it. Obviously, right now they are collecting donations. I know that they have 20,000 plus thus far. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, Zach, you want to chime in? We were with you on Friday, most of us. We did have more than a quorum there, so.
Yeah, just wanted to say thanks again for taking us up on the invitation to come out to Rad Canyon, and hopefully that showed you guys, those who weren't exactly sure as far as what we were talking about and kind of envisioning. So I guess just from that, if there were any questions that came up after that visit or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer those. But I think a lot of questions were kind of covered while we were there and stuff. So
Let me have those that weren't there first ask their question. Corinne, that you were not there. Do you have any questions for him? And then those of you who were there, is there something that's come to the surface since we left on Friday?
Well, the only thing that I want to make sure of is that, and I read it in the contract, that this is a lease And obviously you've come forward with a sponsor and so forth. I honestly, because I wasn't there, I'm not sure what questions to ask. I think if I'd been there, I would have experienced more and been able to see more, but sorry if I wasn't able to be there. But I just want to make sure that, that the land is a lease and that, because for instance, if it were ended up years down the road being run by a company that doesn't upkeep their end of it, then we'd be able to change gears if we needed to. It wouldn't be landlocked into a deal where we, couldn't change something. So, and I read that in the contract, so I'm comfortable with that. Please, everyone who was there and experienced it, inform me, please.
Okay. Brody, can you be ready in just a minute to talk about the UDOT land behind the proposed parks maintenance? And perhaps one of the things we've got to do is for Zach, we got to quick turn this. They got to be ready to go in the spring. So we've already talked to UDOT and they would make land available down by the Public Works building and where the future park maintenance facility will be, that we could occupy that soon. Even though the sale didn't go on, we'd have an MOU that allowed that to happen. So Brody, if you get ready to talk about that. And then Dave, do you have any more questions of Zach?
No, I thought the tour was very informative, and I think that what I saw down there is very doable somewhere within the city. To me, the only real issue outstanding is to find the best possible location for it within the city. And I do think that that's still in question.
Yep. Seth?
Yeah, so no, I'm supportive of the project. I think that obviously based on the partnership we have, this would kind of in a little bit less of a normal fashion, to some extent jump our master plan, right? This is a little out of order, but I think there's special circumstances here at play. When I'm reading the MOU and I was just trying to make sure, I asked Brody at the time and we wanted to make sure we were clear on this when it talks about the 400,000 approximately to build the track. But then our responsibility as the city goes was for the stormwater management, pump track and associated amenities, which was 200,000, I think separate from that 400,000. And then the restroom and parking lot. Was that 400,000 to capture all of that alone, or is that minus the donations, approximately 20,000 at this point? Or what is our obligation once the site is located?
Yeah, I think that 400,000 estimate at the time included the actual track itself and, the announcer booths and the speakers and the fencing and whatnot. But, we had that meeting last month with Zach and the BMX group that kind of went through the different types of tracks that we could build, different levels, if you will, and the associated pricing was attached to that. So we're talking in very rough numbers at this point. I can, when I talk about this other property and kind of lay that out, we might be able to kind of narrow down some of those numbers.
Okay, that would be helpful. I think, my commitment would be to do it right, but obviously there are some other, like you said, mitigating factors on site selection that would change that, or maybe create a status change, along the way, depending on how we go. But I'm just trying to think. There was one other question I had. I do want to do it right. I want to make sure that it's a fully functioning and successful endeavor. And so, yeah, I'm supportive of it.
Lisa?
Yeah, so I thought it was a great tour. And one of the things that we did discuss was that if we were to do it by the by our parks maintenance facility and all that area, is that we wouldn't that it wouldn't cost to bring the water and sewer and electricity because it's already there. Whereas we had some issues with that in some other spots. So would Krista be the one to give the strongest opinion on where it should be, or who has that frame of reference and share?
That would be you, council.
I think it'd be more of a.
But don't you have some insight? What are your thoughts then, Krista?
I actually think would be between the fields and the property behind the equestrian park. Obviously next to the city hall we shouldn't do it there. And then I also think the regional park, to put this in there, we're going to have to redesign the regional park. We are already so far into that we would just, cost more money to do that. So I would say those are the two properties that I would look at. You are going to have to, if you do it at the field, you're going to have to change an ordinance because we have a little issue there. And then, there's the property behind it at the equestrian park. We talked about this, that there's amenities that you could share between the two, the equine community, the equestrian park, and then also the tracks. However, we haven't discussed with the equine community how that would affect them. So I think we have to take that into consideration too. And then all the utilities are there. And I don't know what the cost would be to run the utilities at the fields, if that's going to be a big cost or if it's, kind of sixes. So that would be my thing is between those two properties.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody have insight into what it would cost to run those utilities?
We will have those. So I'll preface my comments with, depending on where you want to look,
Okay.
we will be, we tentatively have this item on the November 9th agenda already to actually go into the numbers and really start digging into what the costs are depending on the direction we get tonight.
So some of the things I'd want to see then for that, we would want to know what the cost would be. I think, in my opinion, by the city hall is off the table. And so if we were to look into the others, I'd like to know what the cost to run utilities would be. And I'd also like to know what the equestrian park, what the impact would be, as Chris was saying, that could impact them. Even though we need to keep in mind, I think a lot of people are misunderstanding that it's a BMX track as opposed to they think it's a motocross. So we would want to be really clear on that, because I think we get two very different opinions depending on the sound and the dust kick up and stuff. So those are the things that I would want to help inform my thoughts and decision.
What about the, as far as the location next to the equestrian park, the fact that I think the majority of their events would be held on Saturdays and Sundays? Is that, well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think Zach or Bruce, I think you had told me that.
Yeah, generally like a weeknight. So currently at Legacy, where we've done practice nights on Tuesday nights and races on Saturday night or Saturday evenings. And so a few times a year, it would be like a multi-day event, over the course of an entire weekend. But that's, like I said, a couple of times a year is all.
Okay. I just want to make sure it doesn't create an interference with it. I mean, if we are sharing parking as such with the equestrian park, I don't know if that would be a challenge to get all those horse trailers in there. And I think you guys pull a lot of trailers. And
I think that would be, there would be very few instances where there would ever be any overlap to begin with or anything like that. And I think if there were, that'd be easily, come to.
It's kind of scheduled around or something.
Yeah, Zach actually brought that up with me and said, if they had a big event, then we would just, schedule around it. So.
Okay.
Well, I guess one of the things, just kind of backtracking a little bit, Seth, one of the things you'd asked about, I know it's kind of ran the gamut as far as, costs and stuff. And as we've talked about in other meetings and stuff, it just depends on, what kind of facility you want to go with and which I know it had been brought up with the Parks Advisory Committee using city money to go toward it or whatnot. And so we will put forward as much money as we can raise to it and go with that. And if the city want to put forth some too, then awesome. If not, we'll work with whatever we can on our end and to do the biggest and the best track that we can. So hopefully that answers it.
One more question, Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
Now, as I'm reading through this information or, beforehand, are there two different tracks we're talking about? The BMX track. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was following that correctly. And the pump track is open to the public. The BMX would be leased. Okay.
The pump track would be something that the city took on themselves. We would pay for that, the entirety of that.
Right.
What we're looking at right now is a portable one, so you could adjust and make it work however we needed to make it fit.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I was tracking that correctly.
And you can
No.
have, like I said before, up to 50,000, up to 200,000. The 200,000 is a good pump track. So.
Okay.
Jordan?
Hey, sorry, real quick, Zach, what you were talking about, you're in charge of bleachers and all those things. With your lease being up with the county, wasn't that in Farmington area? Are you looking at bringing those things over? Are you able to save some costs and get to make it even nicer because of that kind of thing? Or what's your
We haven't gotten that far into it yet. We've kind of at this point just kind of been waiting, or I guess taking care of things we can take care of, but and just gone out to a few select.
Whose phone?
Not me. Just a few select potential sponsors and whatnot. We've kind of been waiting till we have a location or something like that narrowed down to really push a lot of those details. But yeah, that's something that we've discussed amongst our board is places to outsource some of that stuff if needed, like bleachers and some of the facilities and things that we would need for the track. So.
Okay, Jordan, I've been trying to get to you. You can
one more thing. I'm kidding.
You can talk all you want. You can give instruction on the proper use of the day.
Jordan, it's not working. You're like speaking like one of the chipmunks, or even faster.
Yes.
I cannot understand you.
Yeah, I don't think we're listening to you right now, Jordan.
No, I think it was him. Do it again.
It's like chipmunks times 1,000.
How about now?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll turn your volume down.
That's far worse.
Thanks, jerk. All right. Am I really that loud? Because I don't know how to turn the volume down. All right. So I'm looking, I decided to pull up the plan for the West Davis corridor as we were looking at all of this. And man, I just think it would fit so well in that space between the freeway and the equestrian park. We can just call it the riding sports park. And the shared parking appeals to me, the shared use of utilities. You'll have poles with lights. You just put some lights on the other side. I think that that property right there just fills a need, and otherwise it's just going to be empty space in Syracuse. And why not put a sports park right off the freeway where it's got good visibility, it's got good access. It's also just down the street from just one freeway exit away from all of our restaurants and things like that. So I really like the idea. Originally, the Parks Committee thought the equestrian park was their number one. But obviously, we want to keep the equestrian park as well. But I think if they had this option, they probably would have picked it. Again, I'm speaking for them. But I personally think we ought to go with that spot. Let's try and procure this and get it going. I think the shared parking will be very usable, and any conflicts we have, we can just plan around, as Seth was saying. So
where at, Jordan?
So between the equestrian park and the West Davis corridor,
I've got a map.
West Davis Highway.
I've got a map. I'll show you here in a minute.
Okay,
I'd like to just,
Yeah, I can share my screen if you want. You'd have to make me a co-host.
I would like to just throw out one consideration, and this does not nix the plan that you're talking about. It's just a consideration. But if we utilize the land that you talk about, it prevents any future expansion of the equestrian park. Now, again, I'm not saying that we planned an expansion. I don't know that we did. It's been mentioned by the equestrian community, and there's no other way for them to expand. So making that decision does end that discussion.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm open to that. Show me.
I'm going to show you. If am I a co-host now? Ha! I'm a co-host. The power that I have. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So here's the equestrian park, and I think you could put the BMX facility put some spacing in between and leave some gap here that you could put as parking. And if the equestrian park ever wanted to expand, they'd have this. I mean, right now, remember that we were originally going to put the BMX facility inside this space. Now we have a little bit more room to expand, but imagine this, say right here, that's not even half of the space. You could put it right here, parking. I think there's room for both of them to expand and room for a pump track besides.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now that I see the map, thank you for sharing. I'm convinced.
I was very convincing. Okay.
Now would you like to go and give a demonstration on how to use a bidet?
No, I'm really not going to.
That's private between those of us that rode in my car down there. I learned how to use a bidet and how to pronounce it.
No one showed him, for the record.
Not in the car. That did not.
Okay, let's move on. This next one is mine. I'm going to start it.
Mayor, did Brody have something to share first?
Mayor, did you want me to share something on this? Or
yeah, sure. Yeah,
I can.
Yep.
So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Sorry. I figured you wanted some more information on this site.
Are you going to show us a bidet?
I'm not going to show you today, but I'll show you. So going back to the map here that Jordan was showing, this property is about between 4.5 and 5 acres of what we're discussing. This isn't part of this topic of discussion, but we were actually also going to propose that maybe we purchase this triangle up here for future expansion of the park maintenance facility in the future. So just to kind of give that some more room for expansion. Anyway, this portion owned by UDOT, they think they can have it ready for us in time. And, you know, based on, so I can speak a little more freely about the property because as far as the city knows, we actually do have the first right of refusal, essentially, so that you know, there's no compromising of the price or anything if we talk about it in public. So, you know, we haven't had an appraisal done, but just judging by what some of the other properties in this area that went for in the UDOT project, you know, we think we could pick this up for around, again, really rough ballpark figures, around 400,000, something like that. When we get into where does that money come from, you know, we do have a net proceeds from our sale of the Fremont property that can be argued should go directly to parks. We also have the sale of the property next to Founders Park, and that arguably needs to go to. Actually, that one does need to go to parks. And so there's, you know, 4 or 5 times that amount of money that doesn't even touch impact fees or taxes directly. So as far as getting some efficiencies, so as we talked about down here, this was the site. And again, the Park Advisory Committee, their scope was looking at properties the city already owned. That's why this one was never talked about, because it just sort of came up in our discussions with UDOT that maybe we could buy this property up here by the equestrian park. This is the property the city owns south of the Fields subdivision. The discussion of having the BMX park on this property, in order to get it there, there is going to be, you know, water, sewer, an electric that would have to run. The closest spot we talked with our city engineer would probably be from the subdivision up here, and we'd have to run it down to where we would go. We're assuming we wouldn't want to locate it right next to the neighborhood because it has the lights and this is the purpose of this open space was really to be open as part of that cluster subdivision. And so we think that would go against the purpose of that subdivision. A bathroom, right? A restroom would have to go here. And we were also, so in addition to that, we were talking about doing a restroom for the equestrian park. Now, if you co-locate them at the same park, you can just build one restroom. The utilities for this park are already here. You don't have to extend them anywhere. They're already either here or stubbed in on the road. So those savings really chip in to making this option more viable. And so those are kind of the considerations we were looking at on this property and why it actually might make sense in the long run.
Brody, can I ask, the property where your cursor is right now, below that, is that also potentially available? So if we needed, let's say, another acre, could we move the southern border down and incorporate a little bit more?
Yes, and this area that I outlined is just a rough.
Okay,
estimate.
so if that's all potential, then there's some flexibility there, and that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, so UDOT owns everything from 2700 South behind the city properties all the way down here.
Okay.
So that's all what we would consider available.
Cool.
Cody, did you say there was some timeline issues with wetlands or anything? Is this the property you were discussing?
Yeah, so this property does have some regulated wetlands on it, not on the entire thing. And so if that is something the council wants to investigate, on November 9th, we can do a little more due diligence on it. But with the wetlands, it's about an 18-month process to get the wetlands worked through. We had to do that for the property here where the park maintenance facility is. And we were able to get those wetlands to be excluded based on the study, because they basically were created by irrigation of this field over here, but with the highway, it basically cuts off all the water source anyway.
Oh, cool.
So they're no longer viable wetlands in our view, but we have to show that to the Army Corps. And that usually takes about 18 months. So to get around that, we actually think there might be an option where BMX could operate outside of that wetland for the first year. We could get the wetland issue taken care of, and then they can either modify their track, or maybe that's where we put the pump track. So we can work through those types of things.
Interesting.
So Brody, you're saying we could still do it on that property. We obviously just couldn't do it where the wetlands were, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
We would just
For
have
the
to
first
avoid
year.
the portion of it that's wetlands.
And
What?
pump tracks ride through wetlands.
Right.
Tell me what,
Another good thing about this property is we already have parking at Public Works also, and there will be parking at the park maintenance facility. So that'll help also if there's a.
Yes, yeah, I forgot about that. So if we were going to go down here, you're right, Krista, we would have to provide some parking and pay for that. Whereas here we actually have parking for the equestrian arena. We have parking that we could actually use here by Public Works, especially on weekends. When a park maintenance facility is built, that is mostly going to be available, the front parking for that. And so there's already some built-in shared parking for both arenas.
Nice.
yeah. Hey, tell me what the 18 months consists of. Why is there such a long period of time besides bureaucracy? That what it,
All of it.
That's what it is.
I think you said it.
It's like, what do you add to that?
never mind. So one word, bureaucracy. Okay. got it.
Brody, do you think that because we've already done all of the work on the park maintenance property, that this one might not take as long? Because we already had to submit all of that?
Yeah,
Would it be the same?
I talked to Brian. I don't think they'll just kind of rubber stamp it or
Right.
anything, but it'll be a little less back and forth. So we could
All of the same reasons apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like a little easier on our end for our staff, but the Army Corps is going to take their time
Yeah.
considering still. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we can get it through in a year or something like that instead. I don't.
I'm
So-
supportive of this property. I think this would be great.
Yeah, that sounds like we've got a lot of answers there
If
for
the,
especially cost.
yeah, if the council wants us to kind of go through with those comparisons, we can have that ready on November 9th.
That would
Okay.
be great.
Thanks, Brody.
Which
Let's move-
comparisons? I'm sorry.
If you want us to also show some cost estimates to run the utilities down on the fields.
I'm okay abandoning the fields.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cost benefit sounds like this is the best one.
Yeah. I just don't want to waste staff time. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Dave.
I don't want to do that either. And I can see the benefit here. The only thing I'm concerned about, and it sounds like it's going to work itself out, is I don't want to cut off any future that could be part of the equestrians, but there's room enough for everybody there. So,
Yeah, we can look at that as far as, if the arena or seating, if we want to have some.
yeah,
additional
it could be
seating.
shared space between the two that's mutually beneficial. I mean, both of them need open space, one for trailers and the other, I mean, both trailers, but different sport trailers. And, if we plan that as part of it, it's becomes a shared space and allows for even more expansion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm okay now. As long as we weren't cutting one off for the other.
Yeah, no.
Council, can we move on?
Yep.
We're good. Okay, this next one I think is something I can explain. The Bluff Road, initially remember this is a design build thing. One of the first designs that we saw of the West Davis Highway was that there would be a dead end at the Bluff Road at Antelope and a dead end on the north side at Antelope. And thankfully, UDOT has listened to us, and there'll now be frontage roads that turn and come east and enter into a stoplight on 2500 West. So what that creates is an addressing problem, because what happens is we've got numbers on, so if we have the Bluff Road, we don't know what side of the street we're on. So it's an addressing problem. So we're looking for a name for that north frontage road. And we'd like to know how you would like us to arrive at that number. Who's sharing?
I'm sorry, that's me. Were
Is
you
that
going to
you?
share
Okay.
that?
Yeah, you're good. Can you see the north frontage road? It comes along.
Right.
Comes along and goes like that. I have been in contact with Bill and Sheldon Child. I've known them forever. And their original home where they were raised is right there along that frontage road. And they have suggested Child Road. But we don't have to name it that. There are some other names. It might be the North Immigration Road, because this is the old immigration trail.
Yeah.
So we want to know how you want to, what kind of method you want to go through naming that. We just want to do what you recommend. I called Bill and Sheldon just because I wanted to see if they would support that, and they would.
Who starts discussion, Mayor?
Let's see. This is Jordan.
If we have to change the name, and I don't fully understand all of the logistics behind that, but I actually thought North Immigration Road was actually appealing.
Royce, do you want to talk a little about, you do all the addressing in the city. Would you want to talk about that and why that's a conflict?
North Immigration Road, you mean?
No.
I'll just believe you that it would make things complicated. I just know that it's.
Well, it disconnects. Remember, in
Right.
reading, it talks about how they'll, and then you've got an issue. In my opinion, I think you'd end up with an issue with emergency and just basically travelers who aren't familiar with the area wouldn't realize that the road continues on over the street, but you can't connect to it. So it's basically an issue with addresses being weird, not being able to get across that road without looping up around over across another road. And I think it'd be an issue for emergency personnel.
Robert?
And for that reason, I'm good.
Okay, Robert?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, if you had north in the street name, all of the house numbers are addressed as south. So you might have 1200 South, North.
Just immigration.
Immigration Road.
Okay. Sure. Immigration Road.
Mm-hmm.
We always think of a kindergartner in school who has to learn their address. Make it as short as possible for those poor kids.
I Street.
Yeah, works.
Actually, it's emigration, not immigration. So E Street.
E Street.
What do we feel about maybe having the public connected to this?
So some naming considerations in this instance. It does have impact on existing residents when you change their address. You know, all their billing and everything, their
Driver's licenses.
their Amazon accounts or whatever, are all set to that address. So it is impacting residents when you change their address. Normally, it's an administrative process because it's a new subdivision and the name, you know, the naming convention for the city's already set. But when you're going to go in and change with existing residents already living on it, we would suggest that we go through a very public process.
So
That's
this isn't the first.
It's like 14 homes.
Okay, this isn't the first time that there's been a road that had the same name on two sides of another road. So with respect to all those people who would have to go through all of that changes and hassle, do we even have to put Bluff North and Bluff South? Can it just still be Bluff Road?
I know there's an 1830 in another part of the city that has, and when my house was first built, all my packages went there.
Mine too, 1189 Princess Circle. The mailman couldn't figure out that I was on Inverness, not Princess.
Which that right there is reason enough to consider changing this, because you're dealing with, I think you'd end up with a lot more issues just because of what it used to be and then what it becomes. I think that there are a lot of reasons to change it with it no longer connecting.
So I think that Brody has a good point, and that before we were to make that decision, since it doesn't have to be made tonight, we probably ought to inform the people on that street and get their feedback, maybe have a public hearing that allows them the chance to say, hey, I really don't want to go through this, or hey, I think it's no problem and I prefer to have that, to the problems that would happen on the backside. I'm willing to hear them.
I think that's a good idea, actually, because just bring them in, say, hey, let's chat and tell you the reasons for and against, and let them make the decision.
Yeah,
and unless there's legitimate safety concern. If there's legitimate safety concern, then okay, I get it. But I don't see that right now because, I mean, if it's bigger than 17, then you're on one side of the street. If it's smaller than 17, then you're on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
Royce?
1700, sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we currently have, with the Antelope widening, there were a couple of streets that were bisected with that and were shortened. And so I'm sure we can probably think off the top of our heads, there's a couple that, excuse me, near existing developments that we just approved, about 1500 west-ish. There's a road there that used to connect through. It has the same name on both sides of the street. That's disconnected. We've had that in one other location I can think of, just off the top of my head. And the street names remain the same.
Durrell's on.
Yeah, Durrell's the same thing. And we seem to get along just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one difference here may not be critical is that it goes into an east-west.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of changes direction on both sides. Maybe that's not an issue.
Just cutting it down the middle is one thing, but to have it to send it back up east and they have to circle around, you're not talking about, oh, it's just separated by a main road.
You know, like my parents, being from Cache Valley, one time they were down here and trying to find an address on Hillfield Road, and it blew their mind that it all of a sudden went from north-south to east-west, and they were like, oh, wait, where is this? They couldn't figure it out. I'm like, you're still on Bluff or on Hillfield. It's okay. But the curve did throw them.
Yes.
Yeah, so let me, I'll show you, oh, sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead, Brody.
Just an example. So so this property here would be, say, 2600 West Bluff Road. So a property right here.
So I considered that when I looked at the packet. This wouldn't be the first time that the east-west road that connected to another one just transitioned when it moved from east-west to northwest or to north-south.
Inverness does that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one road when it goes one direction, and that, connecting L point, it becomes a different road.
Yeah, you can do
And
that.
since these roads won't exist or didn't exist previous, there's no impact to those folks.
Maybe a
that-
different name.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, you're saying
Well,
change the name from here.
here to there, right?
That would
And
eliminate the problem.
Then none of the
same-
existing homeowners, yeah. So-
But
Well,
it
that
doesn't
only
affect, yeah.
eliminate that doesn't eliminate the problem that they went from Bluff to now they changed to another name, and then they go across and they change to another name, and then they
No, it would resolve that.
Bluff.
Because those would be just two separate, completely new streets that are
Yeah.
not part of that.
If the east-west is Frank Avenue and the east-west on the other side is George Avenue, you're good.
But I mean, I really think that as long as Siri doesn't lead anybody astray, I think this can be done any way we want. So
Yeah, I don't know there's any way to guarantee Siri will be right on this one.
exactly, Siri has led me to different.
I'd like to hear from the residents who will be impacted from it. I think it'd be great to have, because I don't think it'll affect anybody on the if we decide to keep Bluff on the south side, but I would like to give a notice out to all those on the north and say, here are your options, and see which they prefer. Because if the vast majority are happy with one way, then that informs us, I think.
And if we notice to all of them and they don't show up, I guess there's our answer that we can do whatever,
Yeah,
but I'd
that
at
they
least
don't
like to
care.
give them a chance.
Council, what if we were to put this, there's no rush to do this because those roads don't even exist yet.
Right.
But what if in the December business meeting, we hold a public hearing and invite residents along both to come?
I'm agreeable to that.
You okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
But I do want to keep the east-west different name on the table, because that is the easiest of all of them, and just have them have different names.
Yep.
So we can make suggestions to them then and see which they prefer.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk, Krista, let's talk the park maintenance.
All right, guys. Rick Espinoza's here. He's our project manager for GRCA. Last time we spoke, there was some questions about the restrooms, and he'll go into that, about being sharing pipe chases or doing something a little bit different. And that's what they did, is they ended up switching so that the pipe chases could be shared. Once he goes over that, then we can talk about the options of what you guys want to do. So Rick.
Can you hear me all?
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me share my screen. So there's just been a couple of changes. We modified the front of the building so that it's not, we didn't have that tower, but we're still CMU and metal building in the back. This gives you a view from the south looking east. And then this is the other side of the building. And then we also have done some preliminary renderings of the front of the building. So this would be what you would be seeing from the street. Just a proposal for a signage and flag. So this would be the walkway that I'll show you on the site plan. As you remember, last time we met, we had this road cutting through the property. And what happens is it takes out almost a quarter of the property by the time you take into account the tower. So we did some modifications and talked to the city engineer. The other problem with this parcel is we couldn't get all of that we needed on our property. So we had to annex part of the property to the south. So what we've done is we took that road that cuts through the property and snakes around the cell tower, and we're proposing that we move it to the south. That relieves us from having to purchase or annex property to the south. All our amenities fit on the site, and we still have this little road here, I think it's 15 feet wide, is where the right-of-way runs, and they would have access to the cell tower by that. Or another option would be to take that property for the Parks Department, and then anytime they had to work on the cell tower, they would have card access to go through one of these two gates and then access the cell tower in the back. Or we can put a driveway here and a gate there, whatever we want to do to that right of way. But what this does, one of the questions that we had was, do we have enough room for future expansions? So this is what we originally had with our program before we started looking at the budget. Well, we looked at the budget when we got our definite cost estimate with the cost increases over the last 2 years. We took off this portion of the vehicle maintenance phase, and we took off this portion of the future storage. But even with that in place, you know, several years down the road or whatever, we still have room to navigate the property, and we still have room and even areas to expand if we wanted to for the storage. What we have now, I'll show you on the floor plan, is utility room, the mixed chemical, the saw sharpening, and the parts department is in the current outline of the building now. What would go here would be the fertilizer and any incidental product storage for Christmas or whatever. So what we've done is we have a pole barn. Since we couldn't get everything into the storage building, what we have to do is put a pole barn on the property. But then we started thinking about whether would be feasible to just add the square footage that we have here, about 1,600 square feet, just add that on to the building. How much more would that cost? And Kirsta can talk about that in a minute. But what that would do is that would allow us to expand our covered canopy. This is what we've got in the budget right now. And I'm not sure, I don't think that it will hold all the vehicles that we need to house under covered canopy, in the covered canopy. So that would, by adding that product storage from the pole barn, eliminating the pole barn, we save some money by eliminating the pole barn, and it's a little bit extra for the adding that on. As you can see, we're all on our property at this point. We have the access, we have the access for the cell tower, and that's our site that we're proposing right now. And we also have room for expansion. Another thing that we talked about, this was our original floor plan. And one of the things that we talked about was trying to maneuver some of this plumbing so that we could save some money. One thing that you have to remember is that we have all the plumbing is basically in this area. We have a sink over here and we have a toilet room over here, but basically all of the plumbing occurs in this area where the locker room is. So we did look at one other option where we moved the janitor's room, which was right here, down to the corner. And we can do this. What this does is it stacks the water closets so that the sewer lines are together. We tried to move this toilet room over where the lactation room is to try and save some money for plumbing, but it didn't fit. There wasn't enough room to get the door open and get into the lactation room. We would have to cut out some of the storage, which we didn't feel was possible. We only have 85 square feet right now. So we but we did look at that. So we basically kept the layout the same. and left the toilet room for the public restroom here. We left lactation here, the staff toilet room there. We moved the janitor's closet down and we stacked these toilet rooms together. One thing that Krista will have to determine is what I liked about having the janitor's room down in this location is it's kind of centralized so that whoever's getting cleaning supplies or whatever out of the janitor's room, they don't have to go through the locker room to get to it, because where we had it before,
Yeah.
the janitor's room was centrally located. What we're looking at is trying to locate this water closet on this wall so that they're stacked. And I think that would solve a lot of our problems as far as plumbing. We'd have the most economical plumbing plan that we have that we can accommodate for the layout of the rooms.
So can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Are we saving anything by doing all of this? I guess that's my fundamental question is
No.
if we're saving $30 in pipes and $100 in layout, then I just want to understand if we're really saving anything.
It looked like zero.
Yeah, we're not saving anything, Jordan.
Okay.
Your savings is minimal. I think that it's more important to have the janitor's room here or so that people don't have to walk through a crowded locker room. And we just couldn't find a way to save that much money by trying to combine the restrooms.
Okay,
Thank
Rick?
you for looking at it.
Rick,
Can I
will you tell them too about what the health department had said and why you don't want to? I think that's important.
One of the things we talked about last time was taking the toilets out of the shower rooms, but the state health department has, they're against that. It's not sanitarily safe to not have a water closet in a shower room. And so they suggest, or they try to enforce, that all the shower rooms, so we have a shower room here and a shower room here, that we have water closet, sink, and a shower room as part of the changing room. We also talked about combining those, but all the facilities that we've done, people have moved away from that, and they have separate toilet room changing or toilet room showers. Krista and I talked about how many times you'd actually use a shower room. So we did limit that to 2. But we do have toilet room changing rooms. They wouldn't be able to take a shower, but the number of people that do take showers when they get off or come to work at the beginning of the day is minimal.
Hey, Rick, can I ask about a different thing? On these option plans, you've done something I really like, which is increase the storage in where the multi-purpose room is. Because the plan that even we saw in the packet had the shorter storage, and I felt like that was a waste of space, but you fixed it here. Why is that something we didn't see? I want to keep that.
That was the original.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that was a drafting error where we had cut it off at this point.
Yeah.
But we have, what we've done is double doors with 2 storage rooms so that this.
No, it's good.
Yeah, I agree.
I like
too.
it.
So that's how it was planned before, Dave. It's just, like he said, that was just a drafting error. So he just corrected it. So this is the original plan.
Can I ask you one thing about this, though? Those doors that go into the multi-purpose room on either side, break room as well, why do those open out instead of making that a straight wall and have them open in and having the added space in the room instead of in the hallway?
Because when you remove the partition between the multi-purpose room and the break room, the number of people that we have in here, these become egress doors, and the egress doors need to swing in the direction of travel.
For escape, like if there's a fire. Very
Okay.
good. Cool.
I'm just always cautious of wasted space in hallways because
Yeah,
it's the most
yeah.
useless part of any facility is a hallway.
You can get away with that, like in these offices here where you're swinging the door into the room,
Yeah.
but the number of people is minimal. So they allow you to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, we talked about an IT server room at one of our meetings. We have located that. We've expanded this area, so we have an electrical room, IT server room that runs off the multipurpose room, mechanical room, and the corridor that services all of this. Here's our mixed chemical storage. We have an overhead door to unload into this area, parts storage for the vehicle maintenance, a sharpening room for the mowers, and if the budget allows, what we would be able to do is put our dry fertilizers in this area. We had this actually split in two. So we had a certain amount of room for fertilizers, and then the other half was for product storage that I think you're currently housing that in a pole barn offsite.
Can that go in a pole barn on this site?
No, well, what we're proposing is that we just expand this product storage building and eliminate the pole barn that's on site.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I
So
understand. I'm just some fertilizers are also explosives, so putting them away from the main building has its appeal.
The everything is fire sprinkled, and that usually pertains just to the mixed chemicals.
Okay.
The way that the dry chemicals are stored and the product that you have, you would keep all of your hazardous materials here in the mixed storage room, and your chemicals, the fact that we also have fire sprinklers in the whole building will mitigate that.
And then by attaching it to the building, you don't have to pay for one wall of the pole barn, right?
Correct. You
I'm
got
good
that.
with that part.
And no extra land purchased either.
One upgrade I would like to consider, and I totally don't know, but could we get a cost on what it would take to convert the lean-to sheds into a full enclosed area? I'm just wondering if we save money by doing it early instead of doing it later, also considering the wear and tear on the stuff that would be in there. And maybe it's not worth it, but I'd like to know.
Rick, what he's talking about is our canopy,
The covered parking.
parking, to see what that would cost us to enclose the whole thing.
Oh,
interesting.
So build those as pole barns?
Yeah.
It would kind of.
Let me show you what they look like.
While you pull that up, I did notice that on a few of the garage doors, they didn't have balusters. I can't think of the word. Bollards.
Oh, yeah, we have those on there.
Okay, because there was like on there was a smaller one,
They're right.
probably
They're
shed
right.
door.
Yeah,
And I think it needs it too, though.
They're-
Like the larger ones had it, but the smaller shed door, there was a smaller one that was somewhere.
No, we'll have bollards on all of the overhead doors. Let me
Sweet.
go back to the covered canopy.
Because even
So-
with the lawnmower, you can bing it up pretty good. Okay, thanks.
So this is the bulk storage. So this would be where we have the sand and gravel, and that is located on this area over here. So they could come in, a dump truck could come in, back up, unload, and then leave. And then on the other side, this is the covered vehicle canopy because we can't, we don't have the room right now to put everything in the vehicle maintenance bay. We want to be able to cover the trailers. So this is approximately, I believe we have two 40-foot bays. We haven't finished the drawings yet, but that means that we probably have enough room right now for eight vehicles to be covered. The rest of them would have to sit on site somewhere.
So my question is what would it cost to enclose the canopy for the vehicle storage? Because if, I mean, and I'm just thinking of tin buildings I've been involved with before. If it's, you know, even as much as 50,000, but it saves us having to replace tractors more frequently, I would rather put the money into having a couple of walls there to protect them through the inclement weather than I would to try and cut that budget now, spend twice as much 5 years from now, and have to upgrade the vehicles that were damaged.
So are you saying, and by enclose it, you mean like full
Walls.
garage doors and everything?
Well,
Or
at
just
least
3 walls?
Just 3 walls, you know,
Okay.
can make a huge difference in saving.
Yeah, I could get
Like,
behind that.
Farmers do that all the time. They'll have 3 walls just to put a tractor in that they don't use as much because it saves on the wear and tear of the tractor.
Oh, I see what
Sometimes
you're not talking about adding on to the vehicle maintenance bays.
No, no.
You're talking about
down lower.
Yeah, I'm just talking about putting 3 walls on that.
All right,
Just
we
skinning
can do
them.
that. We actually talked about that, about putting a CMU wall, but what we could do is just put a concrete base and then put vertical metal panels on the
Yeah.
2 side walls and along the back wall, and then
Yeah, that's what I'm
that would
thinking.
enclose it. I don't think that would be that expensive, but I can get a price to see what it would be to do the 3 walls.
Yeah, if you would, please, because
Okay.
if it's not very much, it might be worth it, is all I'm saying.
It could keep the sun off of tires and such. That
Yep.
can help a lot. And
Okay.
weather.
Oh, we did talk about the finished plan. So right now, our interior designer is setting up a meeting. We've talked about where we'll have the concrete, and rather than carpet, she's going to discuss LVT, vinyl tile.
Uh-huh.
In these offices, rather than, so we would have concrete in most of the facility. It would just be in the conference room, the staff offices, and the entry into the building. That would all be LVT rather than carpet, if that's something that we want to
That's
do.
great.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we wanted to look into that because we know the wear and tear with all the muddy
Yeah.
shoes and boots and stuff that come in, so.
Yeah. And then other carpet, if we could possibly look at doing carpet squares so that worn
Right.
traffic areas can be replaced easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always use carpet squares because then you
Excellent.
can replace them if you need to.
Right.
Perfect.
I think that's it. Everything that we've gone over, we went over last time. So this is the new items that we addressed.
So on really quick, it was on page, I can't tell what page of the packet I'm on because I'm on 2 different computers. There's just a small shed type door next to your 3 bays that it's an overhead door, but it doesn't have bollards. So I just on the plan, if you'll just take a look at those and make sure it gets, yes, right there in the middle or down at the bottom, that smaller door. See how you've got some bigger ones? I'm talking about
This one?
that one. Yeah. Because it does, if you're driving anything in and out, the edges can get killed. So just a thought.
Usually these are for forklifts, where these are
Right.
for trucks, but I think they're 8 feet by 8 feet. But we're still looking at what the actual size needs to be
Yeah,
during
and
the
I-
Okay, no,
construction
it's not,
documentation.
it's not the size of the door. I'm wondering, I just want some bollards to, on that
Oh,
door as
yes,
well,
yes.
to protect each side, that's all.
No, we'll have bollards like this on each side of all the overhead doors, and sometimes
sweet.
we'll put them around the
Door to-
3.0 doors in order to try and protect some of the people as they come out of those areas.
Perfect. Thank you. That was one thing I noticed, so thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Rick.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, so what you're gonna need to decide on is if you want to keep the original plan like what he showed you with the janitor
Mm,
closet where it was at, or if you want to move that and have them share the pipe chases. Like I said, there wasn't any cost change on that they sent over.
For the pole barn.
And then the
Yeah.
pole barn, if you want, it's gonna be about almost $67,000 if you want to add that pole barn into the park maintenance facility. And then in future, if we need a different pole barn or whatever, we could put that out there.
So I think it's well worth it to add that in. I do want to point out though, here again, on floor plan, you got the old closet design. Floor plan option 1 is the one that we like. So
Yeah, so you want to go back, you want to go back to the original
we
one.
want that. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you
Yeah, we
understand
want
that,
that.
Rick?
Yeah, I
You
got
want the
that.
original one?
Yep.
And then I agree with adding the pole barn stuff, the 67,000. I agree with that.
Let me say one thing. The reason that you're saving that 67,000 for the pole barn is they do pre-manufactured pole barns, and the quality of them is less than if we were to add it on the end. You'll get a longer life out of the metal building that's attached, and plus, like you said, we're only doing 3 sides. We'll
Yeah,
get rid of.
agree.
So
Yeah, better value. Sounds great.
If what I'm hearing correctly, you want to keep the original one but add the pole barn,
Yes.
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get that, Rick?
So
We're gonna go with the original plan where we have the janitor closet where it was at.
correct.
Restrooms and everything the same, but we're gonna
Yep.
add the pole barn.
I had one more question.
Well, wait. So we're adding this square footage
Yes.
to, but the pole barn is,
No, we're adding that square footage. You're not gonna have. the
right,
pole barn
right.
anymore.
We're
Yeah.
Eliminating.
Right.
the
taking out-
offside pole
Correct.
barn.
Yeah.
We're adding the square footage for the
Yes.
metal building.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I
no
got
No
it.
pole barn, add the square footage to that with the original
Correct.
drawings that we had where the
Correct.
janitor closet was not in.
And get a price for 3 sides on the canopy tops.
Correct.
And then
Good clarification.
did we take the tower off just to save money? Is that what that was?
No, it just fit into their plan better, right?
I didn't remember why we.
Oh, are you talking about like the cost part?
The outside, is that what you're talking about?
So there was a tower in the original one that
Yes.
we removed and.
It was this element. So this is CMU block. That's the main buildings. And this was to designate the entry. And so this went up another 4 feet. We're kind of doing studies right now. I know that there was an internal question about doing that. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at raising that up now that we have the renderings done. Take a look at raising that up, and then actually start looking at some colors and then see whether it looks better with a raised tower as the entry point, or if we want to keep it down here.
Yeah. I would just be curious. I mean, if there's no cost, I mean, I'm sure there's a slight cost differential, but as it is right now, I think some type of feature on the front would be appealing.
Yeah.
It's looking very industrial right now, which I get it's a maintenance building, but I would be curious to see if we can't spruce that up just a little bit.
Okay.
The only other thing I
think
well,
once we add the colors and you see the actual texture of the materials, then you'll be able to tell a little better what it's going to look like.
The only other thing I was going to say was just with the signage up front, I just want to make sure that that's congruent with our future plans for our branding, especially if we're going to put potentially the BMX park in this area. I just want to make sure it doesn't. So, I mean, I think this looks great, but I want to make sure it's within what we're already kind of coordinating for the rest of city wayfinding and all that good stuff.
So yeah, let's hold off on installing that sign just yet.
And we don't have to do that. That would be that signage we had going at this location. We have a flagpole on this side, but we're also looking at just some planters, some landscape planting, raised planters in this area too. So once you get an idea as to what you want for the city, then we could leave the signage off for now and then add that on later.
That would be great.
And Cresta, aren't you Syracuse Parks and Recreation? Or you just wanted this to be just the parks building?
Well, it is parks, but yeah, we are the Parks and Recreation, and we can get into more of that once we.
Anyway,
this is really just about finalizing.
Sure.
I'm leaning towards Cruster Memorial Building, but
Oh, I think that's when he's passing away. I hope not.
Or
no, just remembrance for when she retires.
Council, I'm going to move us on in respect for time. So are there any last questions? We
Ready to go.
Okay, let's
Thanks,
move.
Rick.
Steve, let's
Thank
talk
you.
about a budget opening.
All right. Cassie, can you let me share my screen, please? We've done this several times in the past. This is basically a carryover, mostly with the budget opening from our capital projects. It's the lion's share what's going on with this. In the factual summation, I did do some color coding. There's some green, which represent new projects. We've talked about most of them: the water fill station, park strip conversion, the land purchase on Antelope and 3000. There is one additional one for some bluff trail crossings. Bluff Road trail crossings. And then
you should be good, Steve.
Okay, thank you. And then the red, let me share so everyone can see it. So the red are all carryover projects. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yes.
The red are all carryover projects from last fiscal year into this. This is just the differential of what we still need to complete those projects. And then similarly with our capital projects fund, we didn't get an AFG grant for the fire department, so that's zeroing out. This is the 3.3 approximate value we've talked about with the park maintenance facility. And again, those two items previously discussed. And then as you get into the more of the operational changes, we've talked about most of these. We talked about the additional part-time court clerk, the changes in the police department. That is the high end. It's still an estimate of what's going to go on. It's going to be less than that with our turnover and our retirement of some of our officers. Public works improvements, that's the sewer or the sewer
dump station.
Yeah, dump station. Thank you.
Okay.
And some of the other modifications that we had started with the public works facility, those are just carryover as well. We talked about the additional building inspector. That is the high end. That is the worst case scenario. If our current inspector doesn't leave, we are adding an additional one as well. So these are all high end costs. Hopefully it'll be less. We do have a couple carryover for some capital items for cemetery fence and a fingerprint scanner. And then in some of the other funds, we had some carryover as well for some wood chip purchases and a debris collection system. And then the 300,000 for the design of the secondary water reservoir that we'll be talking about later tonight. One other thing that is new, we are working on our disaster recovery plan for IT. And part of that plan, we're looking at more redundancy as far as servers and backup. So we'd like to have two servers working parallel. In case one goes down, we have the ability to retrieve and get things back up and going quickly. So we're looking at $18,000. That's a high-end cost with servers, but that would be part of our disaster recovery plan for IT. That is the lion's share of what's in this budget. This again doesn't include things we talked about tonight with the safe harbor any additional changes we may have at the park maintenance facility. And again, we can add those into the November 9th discussion for approval.
Lisa, do you want to lead us?
Well, is there anything here that's a big shock and surprise to us besides the increase in, construction? Those are things we just can't do anything about. So I don't have anything to say about it.
Okay.
Thanks,
David?
Steve.
No, I think this is what we had talked about.
Okay. Corinne?
The one thing I would say is I do think that is very much worth it to do those protections for redundancy, because I don't know if you're aware, but boy, was it, time's gone pretty fast. Last month or the month before, one of the two, Clearfield City got hacked and it crashed everything. So I think it's a good plan.
Okay. Seth?
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to my mind, was just the security protections based on the breach that occurred next door. But yeah, no concerns.
Okay. Jordan?
The AFG micro grant, can you remind me which one? Was that for the paramedics?
Yeah, bad news on that. I don't want to steal Aaron's thunder if he's.
Is he going to talk about that later?
I don't see Aaron on, as you know. Oh, he is on.
Yeah,
I'll let Aaron discuss those two items.
I was going to put it in the manager's report.
Yeah, that makes me extremely sad.
It is sad.
I was hoping that was a micro version of the SAD, not the whole thing.
Yeah, there were two different grants. Obviously, the bigger one was the paramedics. The other one was I think a capital item, but both of them were denied.
Okay.
Ouch.
Well, we don't get all
Okay.
of them.
So that was my first one. I wanted to get clarification on that. So I'm glad we did what we did in planning as a contingency, but that is quite sad. Cemetery fence. I don't remember what this one is. Can you help me with that?
Do you remember when they backed over it with the truck and it kept getting damaged? Super
Yes.
expensive?
So we had discussed a different design. I don't know all the alls and ins and outs of it, but I think this was a cost of a total replacement, possibly along that east side. Is that correct, Krista?
Yeah, those like stone bollards that people keep running into, they're like $5,000 every time to replace them. And it's hard to get masonry in there to fix them. So we're gonna replace that whole entire fence with like a nice wrought iron black fence.
So I guess my question is, if they hit the wrought iron fence, doesn't that cause a lot of damage too?
It will, but it's not as much as
easily to replace.
$5,000 each time to replace one of those things. And we've got 3 out right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can we move the fence back a couple of feet and put large rocks along the road?
Sure.
I've actually seen a lot of people that live on dead end streets that end up with lots of cars in their yards.
Not unless you want to move that fence back into plots.
Okay.
It's right up against there.
That'd be a bad move.
The only thing I guess you could do is add some kind of like mow strip or something with the sidewalk, but that wouldn't be a Parks and Rec thing. I think that would be the state.
So can we find a way to track who keeps, do we have an idea of if this is from the business on the east? And if so, can we hold them liable? And if not, can we put in some cameras? And if we can't do that, I'm just wondering if we can, rather than have it be the city that's constantly responsible for it, is there some insurance, or is there also just the ability to track who's doing it?
We haven't had luck with the people that have done it. We've seen people that people have reported they've seen like the semis and stuff taking those corners and knocking it out that way. We did have one that was an accident that did. But
did their insurance cover that?
Yeah, for that one, but that was a while ago. It's already been hit again.
Are we going to put are we putting a Utopia facility in this area?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
All right. I was curious if we could get internet in there, because I like the camera idea to try and get some. And then lastly, as far as the 1,800 for the new server redundancy, I think it's a great idea, but I would actually be more in favor of offsite storage. I thought we already have offsite storage, don't we?
We're doing that as well. The problem is if your main servers go down, you're trying to
Pull the data back
download,
down.
pull it down, and it may take several days with the amount of terabytes of information we have. So we're looking at this as a cheaper option in case one goes down, we can pull it from the other location fairly quickly.
All right, so you're going to be writing to, well, I won't get into the details of design because I was nerding out a little bit there.
Yeah, they're paralleling.
And Jordan, just to clarify on that camera issue at the cemetery, we're not going to have a fiber hut facility there, but there will be access to Utopia internet, so we can get a camera eventually in there.
Yeah, if we can get a nice HD camera somewhere, you know, we've got that park maintenance building that's that would, I guess we could hold up a camera with it since it's going to be not as occupied. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. But yeah, as far as the IT, I just want to make sure we did have an offsite plan just in the event of some larger issue.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, council, at the business meeting in November, we'll have a hearing and discuss this. Let's go on. Royce, you're here for Noah, right? Noah gets back tomorrow. By the way, I might mention to you that Steve's hiding his blown out knee pretty well. He had an accident playing athletics on the weekend, and he's going to have surgery on that knee. I think he told me Thursday. So
sorry.
you hide it well, Steve. Royce?
Yeah. So I think both of these items are pretty similar. We've discussed both of them before. So we've had some suggestions that have been proposed by the applicant to modify things, but really I think the general theme is the same. So as far as new plans, I haven't seen any new plans since the last meeting. And the last discussion that I had with Noah and Paul was just about the changes to the development agreement. But my understanding in discussing it with Noah is that the changes to the development agreement and the changes to the ordinance are both pretty on par. They're just trying to accomplish the same thing 2 different ways. So I don't know if the council would like me to go over those changes again, or if, like I said, I know we discussed this in the last meeting. There's nothing really additional, I guess, in terms of what's been proposed. So this would just be a continuing discussion for what you guys have already been talking about.
Hey, Corinne?
Okay. Sorry, just a second. I'm a little lost here on this. I can't get my computer to work for a second. Can you come back to me? Thanks.
Dave?
Well, I'm not in agreement with these, but I'm probably the only one. I don't think that we need to make these kind of changes to mixed use to accommodate this. So I'm not in favor.
Well, this isn't the mixed use zone we're discussing right now. We're discussing this project, correct?
Yes.
You're talking about the one that the hotel.
Yeah, we're talking about the Monterey rezone.
Yeah, and
there's 2 separate items on there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead, Corinne?
If you want, there are 2 separate items. There was the separate application to have the ordinance changed, and that sounded like that's the next item on the agenda. So if that's what you were addressing first, you can go ahead if you'd like.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I know that we've had a lot of comments about it. There's a few things I do want to say. Just a few things. For instance, I just spent several days in a hotel, being both out of town for different reasons, 2 different reasons. But anyway, a lot of people were talking about how you need to have shopping and restaurant close by and such. And I have to say that while we were in the restaurant, in the hotel, we ordered DoorDash and didn't even go and look for anything. That wasn't a big deal at all. We weren't close to anything either. And it was mostly for the view while we were there. The other thing too that's interesting about having a hotel next to where a hospital is my younger sister, she's a traveling nurse, and she would definitely be staying in that hotel in a heartbeat. And it happens everywhere, by the way. So there's just a few things that people need to think about. We some places we've talked about putting mixed use and saying right next to commercial and shopping, and we're like, oh, this isn't the right place. But then other places we put it, and oh, there isn't any commercial or shopping next to this. So it sounds like everywhere we're going to have people that are going to be unhappy about it. It's a lot of NIMBYism, and I understand there's a lot of concerns, and I'm grateful that we can make adjustments and make products better. But I also do think that this has been a long-term Syracuse goal for us to get a hotel in Syracuse. And I'm grateful that he's willing to work with the neighbors on the traffic and also putting single-family homes versus townhomes. And what we're going to get to the west is going to be more of the same. So there you go.
Thank you, Corinne. David, you want to go into this one?
Well, you know, I'm going to say that I'm with you, Mayor, when you said during the debates or the Meet the Candidates that we probably have enough mixed use right now in the city, and we've approved so much of it all at once. I don't see why we need some more, especially at this time. I think that this is a time we ought to be, we ought to see how this affects our city. There's been so much passed already this year. I don't see a reason to do this next one. And I don't think the hotel really fits here as commercial. I don't think it fits the zone, but that's going into the next part of this. It doesn't make sense. So I'm not in favor.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Seth?
Yeah, thanks. I think generally speaking, I like the project. I like that they've worked with the neighbors and been able to make some negotiations to bring this closer to a project that would work harmoniously in the neighborhood. I think the traffic issue is a concern, but was a concern prior. And I think that there's probably a little bit more effort that needs to take place to make sure it works out. But generally speaking, if the applicant is able to get the hotel pushed further north onto 193, I think that would be more ideal and would appease some of the neighbors' concerns that about the predatory stuff and all that. I don't know how much it would actually change, but if it makes them feel more comfortable, I think that's a good effort to be made. I don't know if the applicant can speak to that at some point as well. I obviously don't love the idea of bringing apartments here, but I think that this is a commercial benefit, transit room tax and such that would greatly benefit our city. And so I think on even the next item to me, this is probably more of a, just because it wasn't in our mindset at the time, why hotels wouldn't belong in mixed use as a commercial tool. And this is bringing a lot of commercial into the community. And so I think generally speaking, it's probably a decent trade-off. And so, yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, thank you, Seth. Lisa?
Well, I agree with I do generally like this plan. Having looked at all of the design options and the things that have inspired them, I think that they're upscale, and I think that it is upscale family housing, and they have proven that they want to use better materials and things than a lot of surrounding cities. I agree. We've looked at some pictures and an overview of a lot of hospital areas and what surrounds them. And we have to be really careful that we don't always use, first of all, other cities that may not even apply to what we're dealing with here, because a lot of communities have been around for years, and we know how abruptly things have changed in the last 3 years, just here in all of our communities, and our needs are very different. And so to look only at the past rather than be proactive for the future, I think is only a portion of the equation that needs to be considered here. So I don't want to look at what other areas have done and say, well, that must be what we do. I think that it's important for us to look at what we're expecting to happen in the future. We're talking about bringing in recreational opportunities. We're talking about doing some areas in accessing the Antelope Island area and the recreational opportunities we want to have there, as well as some gathering places and some extra businesses. We consistently talk about commercial, general commercial, as if it sustains itself. And we say, we want this, we want to build these buildings, we want people who are willing to invest in this community, and we will not do our due diligence in providing a way for them to sustain those businesses. And we cannot expect impossibilities by saying, you need to build these buildings for us, when the truth is, you don't have the people or the rooftops to sustain them. You don't have the customer base. And having done this, and I will bring this up again, I believe I am the only council member who has built a brick and mortar business and needed to take out $1 million loan, and the demographic studies that are required by every single bank and SBA loan officer in order to do this. And they do not make exceptions. You cannot say, here is my 4 to 5 mile radius. Here's what we'd like it to be. Here's what our sustaining customers are. They will not say, well, that sounds about right. They'll say, here are the numbers you must have. So we can say all we want, that we want these commercial businesses, but unless they're viable, that means nothing. They cannot get the loans. They cannot build the buildings. And so we need to do our portion of this by proactively creating those zones for them. I've heard some comments said that we're piecemealing the city, and that's just not true. That's just not true. That's what a master plan is. That's what a general plan does. It informs all of the areas and spaces and the zones that we're using, and what they should be, where we want to center developments, where we want single family, where we want higher density. And I don't think that we can say, well, a hotel belongs 1 mile further north, but not south because, well, for no real good reason, but we just think it's more viable here. If it's within the city, it's within the city. If it's within the zone, it's within the zone. We never intentionally left hotels out of any mixed use development. There was no discussion where we said, except for hotels. We've always said we'd love a hotel, and we just weren't in the mindset to include every single possibility. Just like they say, there are a myriad of ways to sin, and I'm not going to list them all, but there are a lot of them. Same thing is true of what fits into a mixed zone area. There are a lot of them. We didn't itemize every single one of them. So it wasn't an intentional omission. It was just not something that was on our minds at the time when we were writing down possibilities and specifics. So I don't think that this nearly 10 acres is piecemealing anything. I don't think that I would love to see us, as Seth said, move that hotel further north. I think there are a few tweaks that definitely will need to happen. But I don't think also that we get to continually say, we want this general commercial, but we will not provide a way for you to sustain your business, and we won't provide a way for you to fund it, or an opportunity to fund it. Not providing a way, but we need to give them an option of how to access those funds with demographic support. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Jordan, and then Josh.
All right. So I do want to point out that 450 South is still illegal. We don't allow parking on Main Street that goes through. I know they've said they would rework that. It just hasn't happened yet. So I've been talking to several members of the Planning Commission to kind of get their reasons for some of this. And I listened to their debate on whether a hotel fits in the mixed use zone. And the idea of the mixed use zone was to have an area that would make it walkable. The people that lived there would be able to visit that place, be it a restaurant or a shop or something like that. That makes it more walkable. I realize this is far out of our city center, so walkability is probably not the main thing here, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say this isn't walkable at all. And the people in these apartments will not frequent the hotel. The other thing that I've heard discussed is this is a transition from townhomes to apartments. And I said, well, I want to see what's going in West. And I've seen what's in West, and west of this is townhomes. So now our transition is townhomes to apartments to townhomes to apartments to townhomes to a hospital. And that's not a transition. That's just a hodgepodge. So I still don't think this works. I don't think a hotel fits in the mixed use zone. It doesn't help the people living in there to better their life. In fact, it's just going to create less parking for them. I've tried to park at hotels at night, and as soon as there's no parking in the hotel slots, they're going to fill up all of the apartment slots. So I still don't think this fits, and I don't think this is a transition that we were promised, because the land west of this isn't something different. It's actually townhomes again, and so I don't feel like the apartments are a good transition into more townhomes from townhomes.
These are single family.
Those are not single family. Those are townhomes. Sure, they're single family townhomes.
If they're standalone building,
they're not attached.
They're not attached at all. And then there will be commercial to the west included in that hospital plan. They've already got that in there.
Yeah, so I saw up on 193.
Yeah, it'll probably be restaurants.
They said it was medical office, but
Well,
okay.
it could be either. You know, they don't know.
And
either.
it could not be either.
Yeah, it could be either.
So I'm still not in favor of this. The traffic doesn't work for me. The transition doesn't work. So now we're going single family to apartments to townhomes back to apartments, and that still isn't a transition. That's kind of hodgy-podgy. And yeah, I just don't think the hotel fits in here. In fact, I don't want to add a hotel into the mixed use zone. And I actually think the mixed use zone, I thought we had always had a limitation that mixed use could only be along major arterials, and this wouldn't qualify for that. And so that's one thing I want to, yeah, sorry. You're looking confused, but 1550 is not a major arterial.
193 is.
And this isn't on 193.
We're talking about moving it north.
But we also
I'm talking about the mixed use zone.
We'd also talked about placing it on the corner there of 193, but because of the neighborhood input, that's the only reason why I got moved west.
So 300 South isn't a mixed use zone either.
Excuse me, on the corner of 193 and that 300, whatever it is.
Do you mean where the mortuary is?
Let me pull the plan back up.
Or where the car wash is?
No, I'm talking about
right
now they have apartments on the corner there.
Which corner? Sorry, I'm not seeing it.
Mayor, did you say you wanted me to add my comments as well?
Yes, let them work this out, then we'll have you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
It's all right. Go ahead. I've got to find it in here. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, very good.
Josh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess I wanted to start by just addressing a few of the comments from the public hearing on or not public hearing, but public comments on this matter, as well as a couple of the comments of the council. It was very nice to hear Noah House express his gratitude for the way that we've tried to work with the community. And that has certainly been a genuine effort on our part. I think that the public brought up some great points. Ms. Larson talked about the need for 300 and 450 to continue to the west. And as you've all alluded to, most of us have seen a site plan. I met with Wasatch this last week and reviewed their site plan. And the good news is there will be connections going to 2000 West. And it sounds like their project is going to be moving forward probably as quickly as the city will allow. And so our projects will be moving forward in tandem and hopefully helping with the traffic situation there. Ms. Gee was absolutely right in saying that, medical office definitely belongs around the hospital. And as you guys probably know from the site plan as well, not only is the hospital planned, but several acres of medical office around that hospital. And so I think that use is going to be satisfied there. There were some, obviously, traffic has been a frequent item of concern, and we've done as much as we can to address traffic there. Earlier today, we submitted a plan, or I guess I should say a diagram to Mr. Bloman and Mr. Whiteley that we're submitting to UDOT that will basically, we have an application in to restripe the intersection of 1550, allowing for dedicated right-hand turn lane, dedicated left-hand turn lane, and a dedicated straight to allow for more queuing there and also a more efficient intersection. Part of that application is retiming that as well. We're doing no parking signs, or excuse me, we're limiting the parking along our side of 1550. Adding an additional four-way stop that's been discussed with Public Works, crosswalks, and really doing everything we can to help with the traffic situation. We've met with Syracuse Arts Academy and talked about some different ways that they may be able to improve pickup and queuing and some things on their side as well. And so traffic is certainly something that we're trying to attack. Mr. House made a good point about the drought and the pressure that we're all under as far as water. And I have some information that we received from Weber Basin earlier today that I will be sending out to you guys this week that shows the use of secondary water in multifamily properties as compared with single family neighborhoods. And so I think that'll be very encouraging data for you. And all in all, I think the public had some great concerns, great suggestions, and I think for the most part, things are moving forward that would address a lot of their concerns. You guys were talking a little bit about where mixed use fits within the city. The general plan talks about mixed use being able to be applied for in any area that's general planned as commercial. And this pad is general planned as commercial, and so it does fit with the general plan to make this application there. There was the concern about 450 South and the parking there. You're correct. We talked that out with the city and determined to remove the parking from 450 and show that instead of a private drive as a public roadway. Noah asked me to get him the revised site plan by Monday, the 18th, so that it could go into the packet, which is earlier than the normal packet deadline, but he did have an updated site plan by Monday, the 18th, that shows that parking removed. I'm not sure why that made it into the packet, but we did get that in by the deadline. And the other items from Noah's reviews, I'd hope you guys would just notice that the review dates within the packet, the reviews are from August 13th and September 23rd. And so for the most part, all of those items have been addressed or will be addressed by putting the hotel in general commercial. And so I think there's actually a lot fewer loose ends with the project than it may look from the staff reviews. And we would hope that we would be ready for a vote in the positive or negative by the next meeting. Let's see, I think I addressed most of the notes that I had. One item of special interest for the mayor. I know he's been very interested in bidets tonight, and so I just wanted to show him my bidet remote there. And I can teach you more about it later, but anyway, we got something in common to talk about maybe.
Great.
Josh, so I'm sure that the statistics on the secondary water for multifamily attached housing is probably beneficial and positive in that regard. But I do think that anything we could do on the landscape plan to reduce kind of wasteful thin, strips of turf and stuff like that. I don't know exactly where all those exist, but I think that's a really good point, is that regardless of how beneficial it is, I think we can even take it up a notch, in regards to turf. If that's something you guys could look at, I think that's a really good and important facet, because you are coming into an existing neighborhood that struggles from pressure regardless. So whether you guys are, efficient or not, it'll still be a little bit of a drain on their existing resources.
100%. We'll readdress the landscape plan this week and remove turf that wouldn't be useful. Obviously, we want some turf areas, but
Sure.
reduce, like you said, kind of that useless strips maybe.
And then, the other concern that I had that I'd expressed to you before was just that if in the instance that something changes, the world changes, financial meltdown, that our concern is that what do we do to ensure that we get the hotel delivered to us? And so we met last week and discussed that a little bit. And where are we at with regards to that? I don't know if Brody or Paul has an update there about that.
100%. So I think we decided to go beyond so the ordinance calls that the commercial portion of the project will basically run with the land and can't be eliminated. Other projects have gone further to offer some bonding. We in that meeting discussed going even further and tying, not only having some bonding involved, but tying occupancy to the final mixed use buildings to the hotel actually, being applied for with the building permit and being able to move forward. And so anyway, we are 100% committed to the hotel and making that happen. And we're excited for it. We actually have an LOI that I'd be happy to share with you guys this upcoming week as well, maybe with a few redactions on it, since it's just an LOI and nothing completely concrete. But we're as confident as we've ever been that this is a desirable location, and that some hotels do want to occupy this west side here. And I think will be a great addition to our community.
Are we good? I want to remind you of one of the things that Josh said. He would appreciate an up or down vote on the 9th. So we'll put this on the agenda for some discussion, and then an up or down vote.
Mayor, if I could just kind of maybe elaborate on what Seth was talking about, would that be okay?
Yes.
Real quick. Yeah, so our discussion, we wanted to, obviously, in a mixed use development, you've got your residential component and your commercial component. And, we have confidence that, Mr. Hughes and his group has every intention to build the hotel. That's what makes it a success for them. And so we don't doubt that they're not going to build it. But, cities know from just history that sometimes things are out of the control of the developer and things can happen. And so in order to protect the city from being in a situation where you approve a development and all of the residential gets built, because that's, obviously there's a strong residential market here in Syracuse City. And then for whatever happens outside of Mr. Hughes's control, they can't bring the hotel. And so now you've just got a residential development and an empty space. Again, this is a contingency. So, in the DA, what we talk about is we say, okay, I can't remember where we ended up. Paul, was it currently it states the last unit can't have certificate of occupancy. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. And the draft DA was updated in your packets on page 183 of your packet if you want to look at it. And the draft language right now says that you can't get a certificate of occupancy in the last multifamily building until construction's commenced on the hotel pursuant to a building permit.
Right. So there's that's something that in any of these mixed use developments, we want to make sure that there's some comfort for the council that the commercial piece does get built. So
Can I just add to that, Brody, why I think that's a great solution?
That's up to the mayor.
Oh, sorry, Mayor, could I add to that?
Yes, you can.
Wonderful. So one of the things that I think that's going to force us to do is it's going to force us to go to one lender, because the lender that was only interested in the multifamily wouldn't want their multifamily contingent on something that's outside of their control. And so I think we're going to need to go to a lender that is willing to finance both the hotel and the multifamily and understands that contingency and is willing to fund the hotel, and so that they know that the multifamily won't be held up on us not being able to do the hotel, if that makes sense. So tying the two together, I think really is not going to let us probably get the one off the ground even without the other. And so I think that should be a great assurance for the city. Beyond that, we have started our commercial component, or we have applied, I should say, for building permit and done site work on our commercial component for our other mixed use project within the city. And so hopefully we also have a little track history of following through on that and building what we say we're going to build. And of course we want the city protected as well.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the amendment. Is this you, Royce?
Yeah, so the changes here are a little bit different than what's in the DA slightly in terms of that timing that we talked about just now with the construction of the hotel and the construction of the apartments. This is more along the lines of allowing the hotel in the mixed use zone, removing some of the architectural standards that be associated with the hotel. And it seems like Noah's review from my understanding is more based around the idea that essentially what's being requested for the hotel kind of falls more in line with the design standards and uses that are permitted in the general commercial zone. So I can kind of use that as a standard to look at the proposed changes, and that those changes are essentially around creating more or less of a commercial type standard for the hotel while retaining a lot of the existing standards from the mixed use zone for the apartments. So let's see. Overall, I mean, I can go through them specifically if you'd like. Again, I know we've discussed these in the past. So it seems like from my discussion with Noah and Paul that Mr. Hughes seems to be moving more towards the development agreement. But I guess it's up to him. I don't want to speak for him. But again, it's just a different vehicle to arrive at the same destination. So.
That's accurate, Royce. What we're looking at here would be, it's really an alternative to the development agreement. Both of these are lawful avenues, if you like the project, for the project to go forward. The development agreement would be site specific, and because it's gone through the public hearing process through the Planning Commission under recent state code and some recent case law, you can approve that if you like the project. And that would essentially make an exception for this project. If you want to make it a more widely acceptable amendment, then you would go the route of the text amendment, which would mean that any mixed use project that had a hotel component in the future could come forward, and it would just be part of the mixed use zone as an approved use, and they would have different architectural standards. There would still be a development agreement because we need that under the MXD, but it would be different from the one we have under the first option. So you wouldn't do both, you would do one or the other.
Dave, do you want to lead us out here?
Well, I think we've already talked about this kind of in conjunction with the last, and I don't like this option.
Okay. All right, Seth?
So I think, yeah, to Dave's point, we have shared kind of our opinions through the last discussion. The reason I think that I don't know that necessarily it pertains as much to the discussion of this project itself, but I think just generally speaking, I think a hotel should be a permitted use within MXD. I don't see why that is not a commercial endeavor. I'm not as sold on completely relaxing the architectural elements that are required. I think that would speak more to some of the other projects we've done where we instead allowed, the offsite option and then allowed for the front buildings to kind of relax and not follow the architectural standards of the MXD ordinance. And so I guess I'm kind of like in favor of the hotel being added as a permitted use, but not necessarily going the full blown relaxing of the architectural standards. But if that's not something that we want to pursue at this point, that's okay. I just think that it makes sense to have a hotel included.
Right. Lisa?
I agree with what Seth just said. That those are my notes as well. That I don't think there shouldn't be any relaxing of any standards, but I think when we're talking about the frontage and the commercial space, it does end up looking different, especially from what we've got in previous mixed. And then I also believe that a hotel is a good option in mixed use.
Thank you. Jordan?
So along with all of this, I just want to point out that I feel like we missed something in our MXD zone. And that is in our PRD zone. I was just looking it up. We specifically mention that in order to have anything more than 12 units per acre, it requires a frontage on a major arterial. This is much more than 12 units. So I think we have a flaw in our zoning. So if we're going to open up this zone anyway, I would recommend that we add in requirements of some type of roadway for this zone. Right now, this zone doesn't preclude putting this on a residential road. So I guess if we're going to be adding stuff in, I would recommend we put in, just like we do in the PRD zone, where we require that MXD zones have frontage upon intersection of either two arterials or a collector and an arterial road. Because yeah, I feel like we missed that, and this zone kind of has this giant loophole. You could put this zone on any street you wanted in the city, and I think that needs to be resolved. But that would affect this project. But I do think this is an oversight that we need to resolve.
Doesn't follow the same guidelines as general commercial, where it has to be located? Do we have commercial right in the middle of a residential area?
But this is an right now, the way this is being employed, this is a residential first and commercial second. And the requirements for commercial are less than 10%. So this is a residential zone with a commercial component right now. And I think we owe it to the residential zone to have this on an arterial, just like we do for the PRD.
I can understand that thinking. I just didn't think that that mixed use would be allowed in a residential because it's already following it. Basically, people are requesting to have general commercial turned over to mixed use. They're not asking to have residential turned into mixed use.
But right now, our ordinance would permit that.
If we allowed it.
If we allowed it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that being a loophole that would potential. Yeah.
So Paul, go ahead, Corinne.
I was just going to add that, the incentive is to try to get our commercial going better in Syracuse. And just like Lisa said, this is trying to get commercial with a component of residential. They're all commercial to begin with in these proposals that
sure
next to that area. And it kind of, and we have to think about it in all locations. I do understand your argument for being next to an arterial, and this is commercial right next to arterial. I mean, I was just in Park City, and I don't understand why this is such a hang up, because they've got them everywhere.
Go ahead, Corinne.
I was just going to say that I agree with Seth that hotel is very much a commercial element and should have been included, but otherwise I'm not too worried about the rest of these changes at all.
Okay, so yeah, in this development, he's putting the commercial next to not a collector or arterial, for the record. It's a residential road.
But commercial is abutting it. It's all in a commercial zone on that area. And so that's why I don't see this as a problem.
So, okay. But yeah, I'm not in favor of these changes, and I don't think an apartment or a hotel benefits the residents in the area. It doesn't make the community more walkable. It makes it less so.
But
And
we're
so
also trying to talk about the fact that we want to attract a hotel to Syracuse.
I would love to
And
have a
that-
hotel next to the movie theater or the golf course or
When
one
you're-
restaurant.
Well, Jordan, when you're saying a hotel, you're speaking now in specific to this project now, when you're saying
Right.
walkability, because I think
Yes.
generally speaking, a hotel creates walkability. You have people that come into town without vehicles. They come in and they use public transit, they use all that. So we're talking about a zone right now.
All right, so let's talk about this one specifically. So let's say we put a hotel right here and we're saying, well, this hotel would service the hospital. Right now, if they wanted to get to the hospital, they would either have to walk along 193 or they'd have to cut through 2 townhome developments, apartments, and then they could get to the hospital.
It's my understanding that 450 West is our master plan for that to be going through there. And that's also the plan for the hospital as well. And then this is also private land that is being owned by these people and will have to be, allowed to, instead of be a private lane, become a public road through there for 450 West. So there is some give and take on that, but this is definitely going to have another road through there. It's going to have sidewalks and it's going to be quite walkable.
I just don't see anybody walking from this hospital, from the hotel to the hospital, because it'll be a bit of a hike.
Obviously, we can't put this on a consent calendar. We have enough differences of opinion. Let's discuss it some more and then vote it up or down on the 9th.
What do we want to do with the arterial requirement? I just feel like we do have that loophole from the PRD to this zone, and this zone has a higher density than we're even requiring in the PRD, which requires 2 arterials to even put, I think it said 12 units per acre. And so this is in excess of that. And do we want to try and add in that requirement for roadways?
Yes, I think so, but I think what we need to do tonight is have Paul work on that.
Okay.
With Noah and bring something else to us. I don't think that this change is universal in the city. It has nothing, it does affect this one in that it brings a weakness to what our mixed use zone ordinance says.
Yep.
So I think we need to talk about that, but I don't think we can continue talking
But
about
approval of proposals is based on what the ordinance is at the time of the application.
You are correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, this is a zoning decision, so it's, the council has a lot of discretion when it comes to initial zoning calls. When it comes to the question of arterials, ultimately you can call it a loophole, but if the council has to let them walk through it, if it's going to be used, you can say no if it doesn't make sense. So if someone were to say, I want to put this in the middle of a residential subdivision, you can say no. The PRD, really, when I see those, it's a tiered system where arterial gets more units, and the further you get away from those, it gets lower. So you could do something similar to that here, where you say if it's on an arterial, then they get this many units, and you could do something like that where it's, when they're looking at it more administratively, they can say, okay, this meets the code. But ultimately, if the council wants something to be there, they're either going to approve it or they're not. And if the zoning text gets in the way, they just amend it. That's been my experience with councils. So you could put that in there, but ultimately, if the council thinks that it's not advantageous to a project that they like, they'll just change it.
Yeah, but I do think option 3 of the PRD 1075040 that says the units per acre allowed only when 3 of the following are met. I think that it was very wise of us to put in, and I think it's even more applicable in this zone. So.
Okay. All righty. This won't go on a consent agenda, like I said, so we'll discuss this and then vote it up or down on the 9th. Let's go ahead. Brody, this first responder mental health program presentation, is that you or is that Aaron or?
This actually Chief Byington. Yeah.
Chief Byington, okay.
Hello, let me get my screen up here and make sure let's see here. we go. I think we got it. Can you see that there?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, I wanted to thank the council and mayor for letting me to present tonight. I'm presenting on behalf of both the police and the fire department in this, and I've met with Chief Atkin and his administrative staff, and we think that this is going to be a good move forward, or to at least look at it as a good move forward. When I first took the job as the fire chief, I'm coming up on my 4-year anniversary. It's gone by pretty quick for those of you guys who remember sitting in that about 4 years ago. But one of my goals was the safety and the mental health of our firefighters. And having 27 years in this line of work, I know that I've got firsthand knowledge of the toll that takes both physically and emotionally on a firefighter. And so what I really want to present tonight and go over is a tool that we as a city can use to be proactive in this this battle, I guess you can call it. So really quick, I'm going to just go over a little bit of historical stuff with first responder trauma, and then we'll get into the crux of it, of what you saw. But according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, first responders are twice as much as likely as a general population to suffer from behavioral health conditions. According to NIOSH, first responders are more likely to die by suicide than in the line of duty. And that trend is continuing to increase. I'll show you some stats here in a minute. Additionally, when we add the COVID-19 pandemic, this has created uncertainty and added anxiety and stress to the general public, but to healthcare providers, you know, even nurses and doctors, but also our first responders. Some of the things about mental health issues is it not only affects the individual, but it also affects their family, their crew, the department, and ultimately the entire organization. This could be lost time, company morale, or department morale, and of course, ultimately the risk of suicide. Looking at national statistics, one of the things that's important to note is that unless a firefighter or additionally a police officer dies from suicide in the line of duty, it's not recorded by NIOSH or OSHA. So these are statistics that are really difficult to find. There are organizations out there like Blue Help that does track, and Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance that do track first responder suicides, but this information is voluntary. So it's given by the organization to help them track that. Let's see, it's a national problem, and one of the things about these organizations is that they're estimating that they're only receiving about 60% of the total numbers of actual suicides that take place in the first responders. And to note, I created this PowerPoint slide a few weeks ago, and those numbers for 2021 have already increased. We're up to 122 police officers nationwide and 58 firefighters. So in just a couple of weeks, it's grown. United States statistics for suicide, I kind of just looked at the firefighter statistics. I wasn't 100% sure where to, in a short amount of time, to find where the police officer statistics were. They had multiple places to look, and they also had a lot of COVID deaths that were mixed in there. So it was hard to really get that information out. But if you look at the United States, suicide is ranked the 10th leading cause of death, with about a little over 1.3 million attempts per year and over 47,000 successful suicides a year, which is about 14 suicides per 100,000 in population. When you look at the top causes of death for firefighters on the NIOSH website or on the NFPA website, sudden cardiac ranked #1, and these are statistics from 2019. That was 22 deaths of cardiac-related firefighter line of duty deaths. They don't track how many, we don't know how many suicide attempts there were, but according to the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance, there was 144 reported suicides, which are 13 suicides per 100,000. Now, if they're only collecting 60% of the data and we add 40% to that number, that's 202 estimated suicides, which puts it 18 suicides per 100,000. And it ranks for firefighters, suicide is the #1 cause of death amongst firefighters in the nation. About 4 years ago, the number of suicide deaths for firefighters surpassed the line of duty deaths for all causes. Suicide Prevention Resource Center, they talk about the cost of suicide, and we know that it's super expensive, not only for organizations, but for family members. And nationwide, the statistics are there. But one of the things that really kind of shot out to me in the statistic was for every $1 spent on psychotherapy or for help for our first responders, we were able to save nationwide $2.50 back on the cost of those suicides. So preventative medicine definitely helps in this case. So what have we done so far? Well, since I was appointed in 2017, I've definitely been working on this. We've brought in training from the Utah Fire and Rescue Academy for mental health awareness. With a grant, we brought in the director of the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. He was flown in and presented to our, we opened it up to all the firefighters in the state. We had that training. We also have the Employee Assistance Program, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, how this will differ from what we're about to talk about. Also in 2018, we brought Doug Robinson on as our peer support to create a peer support program in the fire department itself. He came up with this little quote here on the bottom on what that meant. What we found was we were really, us and the South Davis Metro Fire Department in the Bountiful areas were really the only departments that had an active peer support program. And this really took off countywide. In February 2019, Doug Robinson, actually with the help of some chaplains and some of the other people on a peer support team, created the Davis County Peer Support Program. Unfortunately, we had a setback in that program last November when Doug took his life last November. And so it's been a while for us trying to get this back up and moving again. And we just barely got the Davis County Peer Support up and running again. So hopefully that's going to be a helpful avenue. One of the things with this though is last November, I really began to struggle myself. And I felt like that I personally let the department down in this realm because this was something that was so important to me. About 2 months ago, through a couple of fire chiefs, I was invited to a meeting with a company called Previdence. Previdence is a Utah-based company out of South Ogden. They're 18 years as a company, and they've been working with the U.S. government with their U.S. military members that have come back from war and have had trauma and PTSI, and they've specialized in that. And they've had that contract for 18 years to help work with these individuals with PTSI. And they have really kind of created a program for first responders. There are quite a few, and it's growing, agencies across the Wasatch Front, but also back east that use this company. They specialize in trauma. They don't specialize really, they do other counseling, but that other counseling is really what the EAP is for. These guys specialize in trauma and a program called Advanced Resolution Therapy. Really what it is with these guys is timing is everything. So the way that this works and this program works is we pay for our staff members. All of our retired members and the members' families are at no charge. They're included in this. What happens is all personnel get an email assessment. This email assessment comes out a minimum of 2 times a year or as many times as deemed necessary. So if a person feels like they had a traumatic incident and they want to take an assessment, they can take an assessment. This assessment has these questions. If you notice on here, it has all these, there's several questions within these topics. And based upon these questions, they're ranked in one of these color codes. Green meaning that there's a low risk of issue and problems with that individual, all the way up to critical, which is red. So this individual takes the assessment. And based upon those, they get a response. They know where they're at on this assessment. But if there's issues indicated, on the average, within an hour, they're receiving a text message or they're receiving a phone call from somebody at Providence who is would be assigned to our team. And they contact them and they ask them if they have some time to go through the assessment that they took. They work through the assessment, and so they're receiving this human contact and going through some of the issues right away. If a person is in the orange or the red, Providence has vetted trauma therapists throughout the United States, but more specifically across the Wasatch Front, that they have contracted with that will make room in their calendars to see a high-risk individual within 48 hours, which is super important. They begin the process to treat the PTSI using the advanced resolution therapy. They're saying over the 18 years, it takes an average of 3.5 to about 7 visits, somewhere around that range, to take care of the individual. They give them education. There's treatment through this advanced resolution therapy. They continue to get assessments in the future, and they resolve the issue. So there's human contact from the time the assessment takes place right after that throughout the whole process. Therapy costs. One of the other things that's really nice about this program is they work with the therapist, and they will bill the insurance. And they work with nonprofit agencies that will cover what the insurance does not cover. So right now, the Providence has a guarantee that all first responders and their families will receive free counseling services, granted that there's money to continue with that process, which is huge because some of these therapy costs can cost $125 plus per session. Right now, they work with a company called Mental Health for Heroes. Providence is their own 501c3 as well, so they have money that they put towards it, and they're currently trying to work with the Gary Sinise Foundation. They're in contracting talks with them to add them, which is a huge funding source. So they don't anticipate this funding source to help pay for the therapy costs to go away anytime soon. As an organization, what we get from it is we get reporting. Now, everything's confidential that comes through, but what we get is reporting as an overall risk assessment of the organization. And this would be separated by the police department and the fire department. So we could see that yeah, okay, based on the assessments that were taken, we have a high risk of suicide, or we have a high risk of PTSD or depression or even alcohol use in our organization. And then as these individuals go through the therapy and they take new assessments, we see this risk change over a certain amount of time. We don't know where the organization sits without those assessments. And this helps us kind of see if this is working in conjunction with everything else we're putting together. So Providence was what I was introduced to, but there were some other companies out there I wanted to look to and just kind of gauge with. Cortico is one of them, and they're actually a parent company to Lexipol, which is what the police department and the fire department use for policies. There's also a company out of Colorado called Responder Strong. Well, I looked at them in comparison to Providence, and the assessments, the human connection, their vetted therapist, and then the monitoring afterwards to make sure our staff gets the treatment continuing on. Cortico was a phone app which had a wellness toolkit, some self-assessments, and they had a therapist finder, but those were therapists that were vetted by our department and that we put in there for contact. Responder Strong was a web-based platform and just a wellness toolkit. And Providence, as we said, had all of that. So Providence really kind of, for what we're getting as far as cost-wise, and I'll show you the costs here on the next slide, is just a much better service. They are in the process of developing a phone app right now. Talking to the president of the corporation, he says the phone apps are really to help maintain once the trauma is treated itself. So here's the program cost. Providence costs $14.96 per person per month. So $179.55 annually per individual. Looking at the current staffing for the fire department and the police department, we're looking at about $11,850.30 per year. The fire department fees may be a little bit different because if I've got a part-time guy that works for a full-time department that already pays for their Previdence program, we would not need to duplicate that cost. Cortico was about $13,600, and once again, we didn't get all of the same benefits with that. Plus, Cortico was not local. I really like also the fact that Previdence was just right in South Ogden and local. Responder Strong was no fee, but really that was just a wellness toolkit, something that we can actually even add as another tool to our pocket, but it doesn't come anywhere close to what we get with Previdence. One of the things I do want to say also that I think is important to know is that for probably the last month, I've actually personally myself been using Previdence, and it's a great program. So I feel like the guy from the hair club for men right now saying, not only am I the guy selling it, I'm also a user, right? Previdence is a great company. And I've used it myself, and particularly with the help of the Suicide of Doug. And it's been great. Lastly, I always come to you guys with a solution and ways to help pay for things. The American Rescue Plan Act is a great tool for that. Section 2704 right there says healthcare professionals to seek support and treatment for their own mental health and substance use concerns. What I'm asking is it's a 3-year subscription agreement. Previdence has asked for a 3-year agreement to it for the simple fact that we really can't see the change and the value in their program until we move with them for over a period of time to see that change. So what I'm asking basically from the council and with the discussion is for the police and the fire department, if we could use ARPA funding to commit, it's roughly $35,000 for the 3 years. We would pay for it once a year. And that would give us enough time to see how this is working. It would also give us time to find money to include it in our budgets for future use if it is working. And finally, Previdence is also working with our state legislation to get this type of program paid for by the state for all first responders across the state. That's a huge task, and not 100% sure if they've got all the therapists lined up and vetted to handle such a big task. But I did reach out to Previdence, and they told me that if the state was to pick this up, that we would no longer be financially committed to it. We would still be on, with the agreement, but the state would be covering that cost from this point forward. So really, that's what I wanted to talk about. The one things I wanted to make sure that comes across is it's completely confidential. Employees are not forced at any time to take an assessment. It's completely voluntary. But what Previdence has found over the 18 years that they've been in business is that they have about a 60% compliance rate in people taking the assessment right off the bat. And then what happens is through word of mouth and how it's worked for individuals, that slowly goes up. And they get 100% compliance after a couple of years. So anyway, that's all I've got. I know it was quick. Well, probably not very quick. Got about 19 minutes on here, so apologize for going a little over, but I'm pretty passionate about it. So do you guys have any questions or
Aaron?
concerns?
So I am 100% supportive of this. I would say do it today. My only question to you is, you guys are firemen and policemen, you're pretty macho. How do we get a culture that encourages you to jump in with both feet for all of your guys? Well, I would say most probably would. There may be some out there who hang on to that pride of I'm okay, I'm going to be just fine on my own. What kind of steps can we take to encourage this to be a part of all of our team members? Because this sounds great to me.
Right. I actually I brought Brody, and I even brought Shauna in from early on when I've really only known about this program for a couple of months, and I think to answer your question, the best way is word of mouth. For me personally, being transparent and letting my personal guard down and sharing my experiences. I was really having some struggles after Doug, who was a 20+ year friend of mine, took his life. And I had a lot of guilt and a lot of issues that I had to work through because I felt like I was part of that choice of his, that solution of his. And you never know, of course, right? But when I met with this company, it was crazy because I thought, you know what, I need this. I can use this. And so I reached out to him on my own and thought, you know what, I'm going to try this because if it works, it's something I can bring back. And I think what I do is for my organization and even for the police department is we present this to the individuals, and I don't mind telling my story. And I think there's other people out there that are willing to tell their stories, because by sharing that and showing that it's not weak to do that, to go see therapy or to go seek counseling and to ask for help, it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a strength. And so I'm willing to share that. And I think that's where we start. And I think as more people get involved with it, I've got one of our part-timers now, Ogden City uses this program for both their police and fire department. One of our part-time guys now is full-time with Ogden City, and he uses it. He's been talking it up. So there's already excitement around the fire station for this, for the guys. And there's a lot of guys that are still struggling, even from they had a lot of, they confided in Doug, and through that peer support program. Of course, I don't know all who was involved with him, but there are guys that are still struggling with that could definitely use this.
Hey, Aaron, I was just curious. I personally want to, I think this is a great idea. I think we should jump in with both feet on this, but I was curious if you thought, say, if you take all your assessments, it can't, maybe not anything a lot, but $25 if you complete both your assessments for the year. I would love to incentivize these guys to have one more reason to take this assessment, and just put, I know, like one of the insurances I had, if you did your physical and filled out some survey, you got so much, you got like $100 into your flexible spending account or something like that. I would love to do, like, I don't know if we could do anything high, but $25 to say, hey, if you take both your assessments in the year, $25. I think that is money well spent.
That's a great idea. The question is does it pass the confidentiality laws that we have by not, I mean, what if you can't, you're not allowed to share? I don't know.
I wouldn't know if they took the assessment or not.
Okay.
No, I think it would be down to an attestation that they did it. And I think you'd be probably covered there. That's how we do it as well. There's no, you're not disclosing PHI that you took an assessment though. So I think you're okay there.
Yeah, I would love to give them one more reason to take these assessments. Like I said, as a former EMT and having a dad who left being an EMT because of a traumatic incident that he just couldn't get past, I would love to put anything in your tool belt to keep these guys safe.
Perfect.
Aaron, your answer in regards to how to kind of change perceptions on that was beautiful. That was perfect. I think that's exactly, I mean, this is an age-old giant issue that really comes down to changing perspectives and perception and stigma that has just, we haven't solved that, right? And I think the more we talk about it, the better you do. So that's perfect.
And to be totally honest, I was one of them. I was one of those that known for a long time that I probably needed some help in this arena, but have shunned it and pushed it off. And honestly, the human contact in this program with Previdence is the reason why I followed through with it. One of the important things is when I had that phone call after my assessment, by the time I got off that phone call with this individual, I had an appointment. And so it was like, okay, I'm already going. Had I been given a phone number and a contact, I don't know if I would have done it, but now that I've done it, I'm in a position that I'm glad I did. And more.
I just wanted to add that this is perfect timing, because it seems like one of the few good things that have come out of COVID is the open discussion of mental health, because it seems like everybody's gone through their own sort of crises of it. as far as first responders. It's definitely a bigger one, but where it's more acceptable generally across the population right now, there's been a lot of discussion. I think this is perfect timing, highly supportive of this. And it's amazing what things can haunt you decades later. So especially in a place when your situations are not in your control and you feel like you're the one called on to control the situation. And so I think this is perfect. Good job.
Hey, Aaron, real quick, Mayor, I was just going to say one thing that really does benefit us by having our own control and paying into it right now and not opening it up to the state is there is a statewide absolute crisis for therapists. So if you have dedicated therapists to a program that you're paying into ourselves, rather than relying on the bigger system, I've got programs that are 80, 90, 120 therapists short, all over the place. So we're probably 1,000 plus short in Salt Lake. So I think that this makes a lot more sense, a little more personal touch.
Well, and I agree with that 100%. If we can get our guys in sooner than later, then I think before this blows up and gets even bigger, and there's not enough therapists, we've already kind of took that first step and gotten those guys the help very first.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yeah, I just go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I reiterate everything everybody has already said. I appreciate your leadership in going forward and trying it out first, and then being able to testify that it is impactful. And that, I think, more than money, more than anything else, having an example, it is, and letting them know the value in it is far more important than offering a carrot to do it, like, oh, we have to push it so much because it's not worthwhile, but having your testimony about it makes everybody want to follow. So I'd love to support it.
I just want to say this is the problem we have with Zoom meetings, because hearing your story, I just want to give you a great big old bro hug. I know you're probably happy at this moment we're having a Zoom meeting, but I mean, I feel for you and I feel for all of your people for this. Thank you for caring so much.
Dave, it can be just a normal hug too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're breaking down stigma here.
And on that end, we've been talking a lot about the guys and helping out, guys, but this applies to the female officers and firefighters as well.
Thank you.
Isn't there an emoji for a hug somewhere? I'm trying to find it.
Well, and I think one of the other things the fact that it's free for our retired employees, there's a whole large amount of suicides for retired firefighters and police officers as well. And so I think that to have that after retirement helps as well.
Council, it appears that we're pretty well unanimous on this. Can we put this on a consent agenda for the night?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I would like to just ask, do we want to incentivize them to take it?
My question goes back to, can we? Because if they don't know and we're encouraging them not to feel like they're obligated to disclose, is it possible?
I think maybe we should, like Seth said, you can do an attestation. I mean, we have to do those at our work too, but which doesn't disclose PPI. So
Chief, I would love a recommendation, because if there's one more way for me to help facilitate this, I would love to do it.
So here's my thought, and this is based off my experience with Previdence Corporation. I think once they're there, they're going to be there. It's getting past the initial, getting their foot in the door of the therapist. That's where it was for me. And once I got there, it's something I plan on continuing with myself. So I think if we didn't look at incentivizing every time they took the assessment, that maybe we just incentivize the first year or the first time, that, okay, and make it a little bit more substantial and do it and they can do it through the attestation or whatever we got lined up to where it doesn't break or breach confidentiality. And we can also, I think that can also count towards, those ARPA funds as well to help incentivize that. But
I would love a recommendation.
Okay.
If there happens to, you might want to talk to your own people too, because if an attestation makes them feel like they are divulging something, then, anyway, I would talk to them first about
Sure.
that.
Right. So yeah, let's I'll dig into that a little bit deeper, and then I'll have some type of recommendation for the November 9th meeting, and then we can go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Paul, we're going to talk about some amendments to various sections of the city code.
Yes, the item you've all been waiting for. Please hold your comments until my presentation is over, and keep the debate civil, please. So we identified a couple of cross-reference issues earlier, and we thought we should just go through our whole code and identify some. So we've got multiple ones we found. One big change, I came across the spice section, which was passed 20 years ago when spice was a cool new thing. It's not so cool or new anymore. And in any case, the state is well on top of the spice issue now. So I'm recommending that we just repeal that whole section. But otherwise, this is a housekeeping ordinance. So if you have any questions or additional spots that if you went through yourself and audited all those references and you found one that we missed, by all means, let me know.
Was that the section regarding pumpkin spice? Paul?
No, pumpkin spice is delicious and encouraged to be used. No, that's speaking of synthetic cannabinoids.
Yeah,
this
it never
spice
was cool.
section. Spice section was so old it included the Spice Girls.
Yes, which should be banned. Be clear.
Should be just.
Remove it altogether.
Well, unless any of you have examined our code and found something else, can we put this on a consent agenda?
Yes.
Great job, by the way. This
Thank
looks like
you.
a Herculean effort.
Okay.
So going through the minutia.
Yeah. Brody, let's talk about student of the month.
Okay. For several years, the council's hosted the Student of the Month program. We've done it kind of in different ways throughout the years. Most recently, the Chamber of Commerce sponsored it. However, a lot of the groundwork of calling school officials and arranging with parents was done by the staff. We discontinued it over COVID. We didn't want to have the people congregating in chambers and that sort of thing. So we kind of put it on hold. As part of that, once they were recognized, they were also in the monthly magazine as sort of part of the whole recognition. Connection Publishing, they actually offered to do the coordinating for the magazine. So they reach out to the school and see who they can highlight and try to get the information from the school. And that's not always easy. School people are busy. And especially this last year with all the on and off and trying to deal with changes in the schools. It's sometimes difficult. This is the kind of thing that ends up on the back burner. The school officials, it slides through the cracks because they got more important things to deal with. And so we're grateful for them to reach out for the magazine. At this point, we just feel like this is a good opportunity, a good time to reevaluate this program to see, is this something we want to continue in the same way we've done it? Do we want to, is there a different way of administering it? Is it enough just to do the magazine where more people will actually see it, or is the council meeting an important part of it? So just wanted to bring that in front of the council and see kind of what your what your preferences are. Keep in mind that just, city resources are spent on this, and city staff is busy too. And so, but if it's a priority, we're going to do it. And so we just want to know how you feel about it.
Lisa, do you want to lead us out?
Well, I've always enjoyed connecting with our youth, especially through recognition. And one of the CTC things that communities that care issues that we've talked a lot about is recognizing our youth for the good that they do. It's one of the deterrents to disconnecting from school, from family, from good people around them. And so I would hate to do away with a program this to me would be a casualty of COVID if we stopped doing this, even if we have to reconfigure who does the contacting of the schools for the students and the kids. I mean, that's something I would even be willing to do as a liaison in part of my job. So I am pro the student of the month. And I think it's a great way for us to show appreciation for those who are really working hard and oftentimes will not be recognized. It's very few kids who get recognized in general. So I'd hate to do away with one of those avenues.
Okay, Jordan?
I would actually like to do a little bit extra. One thing that always made me sad is every school gets one kid a year because we were cycling through. I'd actually like to see if we can do a couple of kids, both a male and a female from each of these schools, and try and get a higher percentage. So maybe just have a few more kids from each school. And if that reduces the paperwork or whatever, but I just think I'd rather bump it up than do away. And so I'd like to actually recommend we increase the number of students we're able to recognize.
Okay, David?
I think it's a great moment to reassess and decide if there's ways to improve the program. I'm just wondering, and I do not have the solution tonight, but is there a better time and place to recognize the students so that they feel more appreciation? Because, it's one thing, like if you're recognized at the school, you're in front of all your peers, there's very noticeable. If you're recognized in the magazine, it's in print, you've got something to show. If you're recognized in front of 5 old people that sit up on a bench, maybe
and YouTube. You are on YouTube.
All right. My point is, I just would like to consider what could we do to make this more exciting for them. And I mean, like, I love the idea of the Connection magazine doing the paperwork because we want to get that done, and that taking that off staff, it helps everybody. But to do it, what else can we do that is successful? I don't know. I don't have all the answers tonight, but I'm just so open to what can we do to make this a better program.
I know they also get announced usually over the intercom who got student of the month as well.
Yeah, at the school, you mean?
At the school.
Well, I will say real quick, sorry, Seth, to interrupt yours, but as a matter of just general development, kids do not want to be recognized in front of their peers because it leads to, especially if they are struggling with any kind of depression, anxiety, anything like that. If they have to be recognized in front of their peers, then it creates a sense of all the attention is on me. People who don't like me are going to make fun of me. And so I would just suggest that if we're going to do this as a city council, that it be a connection with the city council, with this community that they're from, rather than connecting to the actual peers. Just a thought.
Interesting.
Seth?
Yeah. I think, I definitely pretty much have experienced only COVID since I've been on the council. So I think I've only seen maybe 1 or 2 student of the month presentations from the chamber. I'm in favor of continuing them. Maybe we could look at some efficiencies and ways to, if we were to take it back on, maybe, I don't know, Smart Sheets or Google Doc, just sharing and sending them a reminder email to say, hey, fill out your form and tell us, a little bit about them. And we don't do anything other than that. And if there's nobody, we bug you one more time. And maybe that's what Connections does already. I don't really know what they do, but we could also even look at doing it quarterly and making it a bigger deal. Not maybe as frequently to reduce staff load, but also to make it a bigger deal. But I think recognition is great. I'd love to continue it.
Yeah, we had a business. I know several years ago there was a business that was under different ownership at the time, that would actually recognize the student on their marquee sign. They had an electronic sign. And so they were actually the sponsor of the program. The student would get like a $5, gift certificate to that business. And then on their marquee, they had a congrats to so-and-so. If and the main point here is to see if it is a priority that we want to do this, we'll dedicate, the staff time we need for it. I think I would internally, what I'm thinking is I would reassign this over to our communications specialist. Currently it's in community and economic development. And, these kinds of things are just like the schools, that these kinds of things are going to end up falling through the cracks and on the back burners because there's pressing matters that they have deadlines on that they have to deal with. And, I think we have some resources still on staff to take care of this. Just want to make sure there's just a good opening for a good time to reevaluate and look at it.
Corinne?
My thoughts were about wanting to recognize more kids because that is one of the goals of CTC, it's recognition. But maybe we could combine it in some of the suggestions that have been brought forward of more kids, but quarterly, so that it doesn't increase the burden. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't work because then it ends up being the same number of kids. But I would like more kids because I always felt like, oh, we just got 2. And there's so many kids that could use some encouragement and recognition. So anyway, I think it's a great program, however it's done. I'm grateful for what the magazine will do. And I hope that we can do this.
What if we did it quarterly for every school? So we had, that makes like what, 6, 7 pairs of kids, but only once every 3 months. So that makes 4 kids per school, but I don't know. I was, exploring off of what you said, maybe a way to make it happen.
What if we were to put a couple of you onto a subcommittee with Brody and I, and we've all heard what's been said here today, and then let us bring something back to you that we can actually chew on and make a decision.
Yeah.
Does that fit?
Yeah.
Does that work? Lisa, would you and Jordan work with me and with Brody?
You bet.
Would you? Okay. Let's Brody, let's have Jody take a look at what time we can all get together and start discussing. I know that you and I will both be out of town next week, and it may be too short notice this week. So I don't know that there's we need to turn this over really quickly, but I think I'd like to hear from you, Lisa, and Jordan on what you're suggesting. Okay, the only thing we have left is council announcements, and so let me start by where you are on my screen. Corinne, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
I just attended yesterday and half of today conference for mosquito abatement, and got some really good data that's come out. One thing that is encouraging, I was looking at some graphing of West Nile virus patterns, and usually the year after a really hot year usually tends to be a low year. So fingers crossed that next year will be better. There is some really disturbing news though about like Aedes aegypti that is now in St. George and Moab pretty strongly. And anyway, and it brings with it more possibilities of tropical diseases. So one of the biggest things that came out of it, and I'll write a better report on this later, but just do what you can to inform the public that it's not just about West Nile, but it's about preventing like dengue and chikungunya and all of those from actually coming to our shore, because it can happen really easily and really quickly. And there's a lot of loud voices right now, particularly in Salt Lake County, that are very short-sighted in their opinion of that chemicals will kill you, but so will mosquitoes. So there you go. And anyway, and there's some information of how we do it safely, and that none of it will actually, the spraying is actually such a small part. Did you know that the mosquito abatement spraying is only 2% of what's actually sprayed? Agricultural makes up about 89%. Garden, your own home garden is like 6%. So what mosquito abatement does is only 2%, and it's specific to things that are flying through the air. That's why they do it at dusk and after dark, and not to actually land on any agricultural products. Anyway, so it was a really great informative session, and I will let you know more later. Thank you.
Thank you. Corinne, I received a text from Randy Elliott today commending you for your service on the mosquito abatement.
Oh, that's very sweet. They've been a joy to work with.
Yep. Thank you. Seth?
Nothing really substantive, just I don't know if you guys saw, I think in coordination with some of the amendment discussion, the text amendment on the MXD, in my planning commission report, there was discussion about having a follow-up work session item about the MXD zone, and maybe some efforts to bolster the ratio of commercial to residential in the zone, and some other efforts to look at the zone. So if you haven't seen that, that's in the report. And, I'll obviously share that with the council through other reports when that occurs.
Thank you, Seth. Dave?
Nothing really significant. We've moved sewer board up a week because it falls on Veterans Day. We wanted to be able to observe that. So that was a board wide thing. So we're going to do our budget that we normally do the second Thursday of the month will be the first Thursday this year.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Jordan?
Yeah. So not a lot to report. I just want to remind everyone elections are quickly coming. Please, regardless of who you vote for, please get out and vote. Ballots are due this Friday, with election day being next Tuesday. Other than that, I think that's all I have. Oh, I did notice that our Wikipedia page is getting a little bit of TLC. Still need some more, but I want to thank those that are working on that. We actually now have a mayor on our page. It used to be Wolfram and Cochrane, whoever that was. So some progress there. I do want to make sure that we are working to make sure that the best information is available for those that are looking for information on Syracuse. So thank you. Thanks for doing that.
Just Mayor, I was just going to say real quick, I was just looking at our council emails, and it looks like there's a phishing attempt in there for your password. So don't do that.
Oh, man.
Lisa?
Okay, so had a kind of a training meeting for CTC as they're going forward. They're reconsidering some of their focus groups and reiterating what they want to accomplish, and they connected with some other community leaders, and other cities are joining. So it's not just Syracuse and Clearfield. Now we're connecting to Clinton and West Point. West Point's been there on the back burner a little bit, but they're and Clinton. So all these areas will be connected, and they're kind of going in, combining some work groups. And so we should see some changes and maybe some different focuses and some programs, the Everyday Strong and some Strengthening Families programs that have evidence-based improvements. The West Davis Chamber of Commerce will be fundraising in November for the schools with pantries and kind of their youth centers. So there will be some businesses in this area. So we'll send out a list of the businesses that will be collecting, and that'll be a fundraiser / just a community fundraiser. That will be all of the month of November. They also did the trunk or treat with RC Willie. And We also had a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce last week. Seth was there. Mayor, I think you were there as well. I
Yes.
have a constant memory lapse here, but we were talking about unemployment and maintaining, trying to help our businesses to maintain employees, because we know that there's a real struggle. Unfortunately, we are such a low unemployment rate here in Davis County that they basically said if people who want to work are working. So we have, I believe, a 2.3% unemployment, which is exceptionally low. So they're talking about retention of those employees that you have and trying to connect with the youth who are coming into the workforce to try and get people as they're starting out. So let's see. Oh, and then we've had a couple of youth that we'll be meeting with again that have come to us that are on our youth commission, and they want to instigate a wellness, just a well-being kind of an event and celebration with the youth in the community. So we'll be working and talking with Cresta about that. So we're looking at that in probably January to have that event in the city. So that's what we've got.
Thank you, Lisa. I want to thank Lisa and Jordan for attending the Victory Medal celebration last Friday. Lisa, we made a mad dash home from Jordan from the BMX thing so that we could attend that. For those of you who don't know, the city council was given a plaque for its support of the Cold War Victory Medal and the authorization to use chambers for that. We had probably at least half. You got it there? Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So this plaque was awarded to all the city council. Lisa and Jordan accepted it on the behalf of the whole council. So council, I'm grateful that you would support our veterans in that meeting. Brody, I'm wondering if you would, one of the things that was mentioned at the Chamber of Commerce meeting with Workforce Services is that companies and cities are learning to train from within. Would you take just a minute and talk about what you and Chief Atkin are working on with in-house leadership training courses, management training courses that are free to our employees? So.
Sure. Yeah. So this was actually something of a goal that the mayor and I talked about last year. And, the city's is of a size now, and we're getting to the size of an organization that we can have these, or we actually need these types of things. We're putting together a leadership and management development program that's just put together internally, where employees can they voluntarily sort of apply to be selected, and so we'll probably start off with one course per year, where 10 or 12 employees will go through we're looking at like a 16-week program where it's once a week for a couple hours, and then there's a couple hours of homework that would also be involved, but where we can give them leadership and management tools to help them in their career, or just to be better at their current job if that's what they want to do. But to try to develop that culture from within, and especially in today's market, you want to keep and develop the people that you do have. And so we just had a staff retreat, where we got a lot of good input from all the department heads and how we can move it forward. So we're pretty excited about it.
Brody, do we have, I don't know if it's a requirement's the right word, but do we have succession planning? I guess requirements would be the right word for it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as formal succession planning, not necessarily. We do, most departments have opportunities for employees to get into different things to advance and to give them more tools and that sort of thing, but it's not a comprehensive program by any means.
Because I feel like that's one of the tools that really helps in creating a lot of accountability, buy-in, and trust that there's opportunities within an organization.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been a real blessing in a lot of my staff's lives and stuff that I've done. And it really creates, like I said, that buy-in for wanting to take those opportunities.
Yep. No, that's good.
Okay. Brody, do you have other things you'd like to share?
Just the bearer of bad news that we already heard. We didn't get the safer grants.
Okay.
For the paramedics. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call that we are now adjourned, and I'll call our special meeting to order. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Who is Seth and Dave?
Sure.
Seth and Dave. Okay, thank you. Okay. This is proposed resolution R2149 authorizing the application of the Water Smart Grant to assist in funding the construction of the reservoir and pump station. Now, Robert, is this you or is this a combination of you and Brody?
Yeah, this is me. Just so you know, I just got one thing on the agenda, just one thing. All right. Hey, so the reason for the timing of this, normally I'd wait for the next business session. I just learned on Thursday that I needed to have this resolution put together. The grant application is due November 3rd. So that's really what drove the need for this on tonight. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has this Water Smart grant that's available, and it's for projects that are water efficiency promoters, things that conserve and use water more efficiently and enhance drought resilience. Reservoir project like what we're doing does that very thing. It fits the criteria like a glove. It is a $2 million maximum. It's a 50% match. And all of the money is eligible to come out of impact fees, except for there's a 3-inch main replacement that we have in there for along Bluff Road. It literally is the original, 1984 3-inch main, which back then was adequate, but we would propose bringing it to our minimum standard of 8-inch along with the project, since we would need to open up Bluff Road anyway to bring the transmission line down. So that item, the 650, would have to be a capital expense. The rest are eligible for impact fees. So it's a big price tag, but $2 million of it is what we could get from a grant. If you want to go forward with it, I just want to get your input.
Motion to approve the grant.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion. I have a second by Dave and Seth. Sorry, Corinne.
Considering our record, I hope we get this, and good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.